Mm. Hey, welcome everyone to our live stream. Hopefully, you guys don't hear the fans in the background. Let me know if you can hear the fans before we start the live stream, because I got a couple of them going. Uh, I'm scared to turn them off. If they're like loud and annoying, I'll turn the industrial fan off, but the other one has to stay on. It is entirely too hot. But how's everybody doing? I was a little late because I was watching the Kendrick Lamar "Not Like Us" music video, which wasn't really a music video as much as it was a pastiche of things. Happy 4th of July, Independence Day. Most people have no idea what this means, or they try to pretend like they don't know what Independence Day means. But I am the magnificent MongoSlade. We will be watching, what was it, season 7, episode 1 of Money in the Bank, otherwise known as government name Money in the Bank 2016. The slave name of the event is Money in the Bank Season 7, Episode 1. So you should be loading that thing up. We're going to start the watch along at about maybe 8 after, so about 5 minutes. But first, I want to give people some time to get in, get some things off your chest, say hello to everybody. So it's actually starting to cool off now, so that's helpful. But how's everybody's Independence Day? Did you barbecue? What did you barbecue? I didn't barbecue. I hung out with mom today. She had some people over. Uh, yeah, it was just kind of like normal. You know, Mitch Colburn, Top Dog, WG Phil, the only Centaurus, and others that I may be watching. Lorenzo Granger, Black singing 97. Yes, I was just watching that video, which is why I was late. I watched the Not Like Us music video. It wasn't really a music video as much as it was a pastiche of scenes. It seemed like he recorded a bunch of stuff and then decided that this was going to be a music video. So it was interesting at the very least. Mom's okay. I think she's been through it a couple of times. My mom had 4 sisters. All of them have passed away so far. Um, this one was a bit of a surprise, considering she just passed away in her sleep. But she's okay. I think it'll actually hit at the funeral, which I'm not a fan of. That's not going to be good. It's not going to be a good time. But it's definitely going to be difficult because my aunt had 3 children, 2 boys, 1 girl, and her 2 sons, both of whom, well, one of them is like a year older than me. I spent a lot of time with him, but both of them are in prison, and they're in prison for like real bad things, like attempted homicide and rape and horrible stuff. So they're locked up, and their mom is dead now. So that's not going to be good. But thanks everybody for caring, for asking. My mom's doing okay. She's a strong one, man. So we're gonna start the stream in like 2 minutes. Um, the funniest thing about the Kendrick Lamar video was the owl that he was beating with a stick. That was funny. Um, other than that, it just seemed like a sort of a normal pastiche of scenes. Like I had no idea what the clown had anything to do with it. You know, I thought it was going to be more Compton than it actually was, in terms of all of the people outside singing the song and everything. But it was fun. Low Key AJ3, how you guys doing? Low Key 7 is playing Ocarina of Time on the PC. They updated the graphics, huh? I liked Ocarina of Time. I like Legend of Majora's Mask better though. That game rocked. This Money in the Bank pay-per-view was the beginning of the burial of Dean Ambrose, aka John Moxley. Beginning of the burial? I'm sorry to hear that, WG Phil. Mitch Colburn is one of the people that preferred Ambrose over Moxley. Hey, I wish he, what he transformed into. I would have been okay and interested in seeing how that would have worked in WWE. especially since he gained all that weight and all that muscle. I definitely think Vince would have saw him differently than when he was skinny old Dean Ambrose. I think that transition to a more beefy Dean Ambrose would have did him wonders for Vince. Vince would have loved that, for sure. So we got another minute or so, another 30 seconds before we start the live stream. Mitch Colburn says, I honestly prefer Ambrose over Moxley. Yeah, I think we just talked about that. Top Dog says The Rock making a documentary about himself shows how much ego he's got. Yeah, all of this was about The Rock trying to explain himself, about why he chose to do what he did. And in the body of it, basically just admitting that he has creative control and a bunch of other stuff, you know. So, which is things that we already knew, but it is what it is. I mean, I don't think he did himself any favors when it comes to, you know, and for how long it took for the documentary to come out and basically just be the Triple H, Rock, and Cody show. It's like, that was stupid. All right, let's start this documentary in this event in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Press play. Money in the Bank 2016. All right, Neil Gaiman. He got caught slipping. Oh, yeah. If there is going to be a pop culture stream, it'll probably be tomorrow night. The issue with Neil Gaiman, from what I saw, is not. It's the same issue we see all the time. If we being honest, it's these women have always continued to position themselves as being some kind of subordinate to this guy. They're one of them said she was 18 and she was just a fan when she met him, and they didn't have sex till she was 20. So basically saying that he groomed her. And this other girl said she was the nanny working for the family and all this kind of stuff. And so everybody's like, "Oh, I'm a power dynamics." It's like, well, look, this conversation about power dynamics and these women leading the conversation with how they were subordinate, how they had no agency in these situations. It's like, man, whenever people start with that, I tend to lose interest. Like, we need to leave rape situations to being really rape situations. The idea that they try to make things that might be distasteful, like having sex with the nanny or having sex with some kind of a very young fan, both of which are distasteful and not positives for Neil Gaiman and his character. But trying to equate those things to genuine rape is trash, and I think people need to stop doing that. We need to just start telling these women, like, look, if you were the nanny, then you know better. You're a full-grown adult woman. This other woman, we can understand how you might be young and manipulated, but at the same time, if you want to be an adult, you have to make adult decisions. You have to live with those decisions. We got to stop destroying people's lives because other folks don't know how to make decisions and then want to blame power dynamics or whatever else the fuck when things don't go well for them. Neil Gaiman's a creep anyway. I mean, but the thing is, when it comes to male feminists, all you need to do is start the clock before all of a sudden they get accused of something. But that's not the first thing that Neil Gaiman has been accused of. Remember, when he wrote American Gods and Anansi Boys, most people didn't. I'm not even gonna say most people. There was a cadre of people who did not know that Neil Gaiman was white, let alone Jewish. So when he wrote like Anansi Boys and American Gods, and specifically Anansi Boys, there was a lot of people who were aggravated by his cultural appropriation, and he managed to escape because he became super woke when they started doing the TV show for American Gods and casting like a black man to be the lead character and all that kind of stuff, and expanding the role of Anansi in the TV show and all that. He went full blown woke, and then he did the same thing with Sandman. So he was able to skirt a lot of the cultural appropriation stuff. But this whole sexual assault, kind of that stuff doesn't go away, you know. And unless you legitimately was, somebody forced himself upon you, it I really don't care too much about power dynamics or anything like that. I really don't give a shit. People are adults, bro. The only time power dynamics matter is if you're underage, you know. So everybody, I mean, people who act like you don't know that you can file lawsuits for sexual assault or sexual harassment if you're working for somebody and they hit on you. Like everybody who ever took up a job knows that you can file a sexual harassment lawsuit. So I don't want to hear it about this, power dynamics bullshit. Hey, it's Enzo and Cass. What is Enzo wearing, and why is he wearing this? See, it's weird that we started this stream talking about sexual assaults and all this kind of stuff, and Enzo is the first person to come out. It's not just that he's wearing overalls; he's also wearing like a jacket or something like that, and all this stuff just looks like vomit on him. And what is this haircut he's got with the spots and everything? He looks so weird. He has so much charisma. Look at this guy. I fell in love. I got love struck by lady love. Oh. Is that a Maybach music chain he wearing? That's crazy. Why was he wearing that? Where did he get an MMG chain from? Why is he wearing that? Lillian's having fun with these guys. Excuse me, what's happening here? What is this match? These two dudes were the golden age of NXT Black and Gold. Oh shit, I love the Vaudevillains. I love at least their entrance. I didn't like the two guys, so I like their entrance. He dressed like he about to drive a stagecoach. I love this. He dressed like an old magician. Oh my god. Oh my word. I love the Vaudevillains. They're very fun. Bishop Marley says it's The Rock's incessant need to be liked. His Hollywood persona thrives on it. Yes, he went to Hollywood and came back with a massive ego. I mean, massive. He was actually nobody ever said anything negative about The Rock until he started making his sporadic returns, like 2011. Then all of a sudden, people was kind of like, yeah, The Rock's kind of a dick. Like back in the day, he was always the victim. You know, Sean picked with him, Rock picked with him, Austin politicked around him. You know, he was just kind of like the guy who went on and did everything he was supposed to do. And then he went to Hollywood, came back, and had like a massive ego. But then again, you know, he was very successful in Hollywood. They blew his head up. But he brought every political chip to the table at this point, you know. And when he got on the board, brother, it was over. You know, he's just going to get whatever he wants now at this point. So I'm glad they was able to work it out. Mitch Colburn says Enzo and Cass were genuinely over to merit a tag title run, although I understand they didn't necessarily need it. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, the New Age Outlaws actually had the belts from time to time. So that they were kind of like the new kids on the block, New Age Outlaws. But the thing is that NAO actually won the titles and held them for a little while. And they were never champions for a long time because that was the Attitude Era. Nobody had belts for a long time back then. But Enzo and Cass never been in the tag team titles. Kind of sad. Yeah. See, I always I got a tablet and a cell phone, so I usually stream on my cell phone because it's easier. And I watch the show on my tablet. I did not. I watched the part where Muhammad Hassan talked about how he was supposed to be the world champion. I did see that, and I 100% believe it. If I remember correctly, Muhammad Hassan, up to that point before he got killed by Undertaker, he had only had one loss, and that was to John Cena. It was an embarrassing loss to John Cena, by the way. It was terrible. Like, I mean, he got squashed, but he was undefeated until that match, and then that was the match that sent him to SmackDown, and it seemed like he was on his way to becoming world champion, but unfortunately, they did what they did. I don't understand why they didn't bother to repackage him. You know, considering he was in great shape and he could talk, they could at least got rid of the Muhammad Hassan character and brought him back under a different name. But I guess his face had become too synonymous with that gimmick. Were Enzo and Cass supposed to be representation of Jersey Shore? I think they were definitely. I wouldn't say they were supposed to be representation of Jersey Shore, because that was more like what they were doing at TNA, like the Robbie E and all those guys, and TNA was doing Jersey Shore. Really, this was kind of like it was supposed to be Italians, but I'm not sure if they were supposed to be like, and they're certainly from New Jersey, but I couldn't tell you like what the gimmick was supposed to be. You know, I don't think it was supposed to be like Jersey Shore. I don't think so. Yeah, title runs actually help. You know, even if a guy doesn't need it, him getting it every once in a while can actually add to something. It adds to the legacy of the title too. Because I would rather have guys that were over and were champions than guys that weren't over and was champions. That's stupid. People should remember. Like, it would have been a huge pop too, and people would have remembered that moment when Enzo and Cass won the titles. Mitch Colburn really liked Enzo's heel work, especially the time in MLW he punted Microman off the apron. Anything that has to do with midgets, I can't stand it. I don't have no interest in midgets. Black J 97. So every time I type in Enzo on YouTube, that Simon Gotch shoot video always comes up. Like, which one? How many shoot interviews did Simon Gotch do talking about how much he hates Enzo? It seemed like he did like 100 of them joints. He says, would agree with, but remember the Quebecers, I don't remember when they won the titles, to be quite honest. I remember more when they lost it than when they won them. But yeah, Jacques Rougeau was tremendous. The thing is, every time he won something, it was not memorable. Like, he won the Intercontinental Championship at like a house show. And I don't remember when he won the tag team titles, and it's not even relevant. But he was such a good heel that he made his runs work, even though there was nothing memorable about him winning either championship. Of course, him losing the Intercontinental title was amazing. That was massive. WG feels that so much has changed from the 8 years just in this match. You can see how many of them fumbled the bag. Oh, it's crazy that when you look at a match like this, that Gallows and Anderson are back in WWE and they still get no fan reaction and nobody still cares about these guys. And that New Day still exists. And this is like 4 years into New or 2 years into New Day at this point, and they're still there. Except Big E is like hurt right now, but they're still there. Aiden English, he hung around for a little bit. The Rusev Day thing was the end of the road for him. Simon Gotch, she just looks weird. You know, how long did he wear that singlet? For God's sake, I hate that singlet, the Andre the Giant ass singlet. Mm. Hassan lost to Batista in 05. I remember him losing to John Cena. I don't remember him wrestling Batista. So maybe that happened on SmackDown. I don't remember. But I remember clearly when he got moved to Raw, he wrestled John Cena and basically got no offense, got smashed, and then they sent him to SmackDown. Yeah, they did. It was like Robbie E, and it was the other guy. What was the other guy's name? He was a big muscular dude too. DJZ, not DJZ. It was Robert Stone, right? No, Robert Stone was Robbie E, right? So who was the other guy? Uh, Not Rob Terry. It was somebody else. I don't remember who it was. The Godwins, the Gun Brothers, Smoking Guns. The Smoking Guns were not very good though. As a kid, I was okay with Smoking Guns, but they weren't all that good. Skip and Zip sucked. I mean, it was just not. That was terrible. I don't remember nothing about them either, outside of them being tag team champions. The Godwins were kind of funny, you know, and then they became sort of Southern Gothic horror when they were like slobs and everything, um, which actually was okay for the gimmick. Back when they were like Hillbilly Jim split in two, I wasn't a big fan of that. Carmella in 2016, 2017 was a perfect representation of Iggy Azalea in the mid 2010s. I can see that. I can see how that might have been. Simon's first shoot interview is when the one he dissed Enzo. Okay. I could have swore he did more than one. Gallo sucks slightly less than Anderson. At least he has a good look. Nah, he sucks more than Anderson. Anderson is at least a work rate guy. Gallows isn't even that. And Gallows is not funny. Now when they was doing what was that Southpaw Regional Wrestling, they both were funny. If they could do those characters in WWE, that they would be great. I would like them. But whatever it is they're doing. Jesse Goddard, that's exactly who it is. Jesse Goddard, yes. He's wrestling in OVW still, right? I can't believe he's trapped there. He must have hit on somebody's wife or something because he's still stuck in OVW. He can't even get on TNA TV. What's up with that? Him and his partner got smashed by Batista before Cena went to Raw because Batista was pissed about Triple H attacking him. Was it? It was a tag team match because I know they lost to. I think they lost to Shawn and Hulk Hogan too. I was thinking about a singles match. Like I think that was the first singles loss he had was the John Cena match. I don't remember him losing any other singles matches. The Heavenly Bodies got Jimmy Del Rey gyrating, thinking he was sexy, and that was actually kind of funny. It was. It was absurd. And Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey. I remember that one. It's weird that when Jim Cornette is part of something that sucks and he tried to promote it like it's actually good. Like I never liked the Heavenly Bodies. I was never a big fan of them. They just came across as two generic dudes, but at least Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey stands out as being humorous because he had a dad bod, but he was supposed to be sexy, and that was the humor in it, and that was the next level to the character. Like he wasn't like Rick Rude, you know, where you could actually see people like, oh, he's sexy, oh yeah. New Day was on the road to breaking Demolition's record as the longest reigning tag team champions. That was at this point in time because I know they did it, but I don't remember if it was like 2016. Damn, that was kind of a stiff kick, bro. Who was this referee? He doesn't. This back in the day, man. I remember the unicorn horns that had everybody very excited. And the young lady asked me to get her a set of unicorn horns. It didn't happen. It says didn't. It was Bischoff set it up. Batista pissed about Triple H attacking Smash, sign and bloody him and his partner up. Huh. Well, it makes sense. Well, I could see him winning the title, though. I think that's probably where Vince was going with it. And I could see why Vince would do that. It seemed like it was easy heat. You know, the question would be who would have beat him for it, and it probably would end up being Batista again anyway. To be quite honest, man, Demolition when they got their record broken, I was less than thrilled about it, but at the same time, I was kind of like, man, whatever. They hadn't been around in forever, and nobody had really talked about them. It was like when the Honky Tonk Man record got beat. It's like it'd been one thing if it was somebody who was around a lot, but it was people who they never mention, they never talk about outside of that one thing. Like they never talk about Demolition, period, except for that tag team title record. So it sucked that as soon as the record was broken, now you have no reason to talk about Demolition at all. And similarly, the Honky Tonk Man only had that record, and once they broke it, it was kind of like, oh well, now we don't have to talk about the Honky Tonk Man anymore. What is Enzo's got great energy, just tremendous energy. Yeah, these were definitely the twerk days. This is not my favorite time for the New Day. Man, I don't have Roadblock 2016. That was before this, right? Roadblock was in February because that's usually the event right before WrestleMania. What was my favorite things about wrestling pre Monday Night Wars era? Uh, Interesting. I liked characters, even though a lot of the characters didn't hit. It was I liked seeing weird shit. You know, like I've been watching a lot of WCW lately because of that damn documentary. But I haven't been watching like Nitros or Thunders. What I've been watching is Clash of the Champions, and I've been watching them in order since 1990 or something like that. So you can visibly see the degradation in the product when Jim Herd took over, because you started seeing PN News, you started seeing Richard Morton, which is like the heel version of Ricky Morton from the Rock and Roll Express. You started seeing people come out of boxes like Cactus Jack. You started. Did I say PN News already? Because that happened. That was a rap gimmick before Men on a Mission even showed up. And you could tell, even like when you watch Clash of the Champions, all their events were in the South. Like it was like Knoxville and Savannah. Oh shit, that was a great spot. Like Knoxville and Savannah, and doing shows in Kansas. And you're like, yeah, I see why. Everybody was like, it was so Southern, because that was their audience. Those were the people they were trying to get into the building. But a lot of that stuff was really good. Even the stuff that everybody was saying was bad is better than some of the stuff I'm looking at now. Like Johnny B. Bad. Johnny B. Bad is an interesting, very layered character. And I see why Vince liked it. I see why Vince was impressed by Johnny B. Bad. Like watching just a couple of matches. And I've seen him on like Saturday night and stuff like that. So it's not like I've only seen him when it comes to Clash of the Champions. But when I used to watch WCW Saturday night, I was trying to watch all of those. I didn't get that far. But when I was trying to watch all of those, he was on there. And when I've been trying to watch Clash of the Champions, he's been on there a couple of times. He was never a bad performer. He just wasn't great. And he could only really play that Little Richard kind of character. But he always had an extra level of dynamism because he's a legitimate boxer. So you would see him with the lipstick and the tassels, and they would do like the confetti and stuff for him and everything. He would look super gay, and then he'd start shadow boxing, and you'd be like, "Holy shit!" Like he's fast and like he's a legitimate dangerous dude. Like, oh wait a minute, and you kind of get the sense that they never got to that part of the character. Like, and he was always silly and queer, but he was never like, they never showed it like he could whoop somebody's ass. Like he took his first loss to Sting, which is a perfect person to lose his first match to. But it was booked weird too, by the way. It was booked very strangely. But I was like, how many people would know Mark Merrill would beat the shit out of Sting? But I see why Vince was impressed. And I don't see why he just didn't rip it off, even though it was basically like a Little Richard gimmick. I can see why Vince didn't do it because it's very obviously a parody of Little Richard, but um, it worked, and the character was over too. No, because he was really over as a babyface too. Roadblock was in December 2016. Huh? Why would they have a Roadblock event when it were Roadblock to what though? That's stupid. That was stupid. Mantar. Oh, that's a horrible gimmick, bro. See, those are the ones that's so bad that they're not good. There's other gimmicks that are bad but good, you know. But one of the things that have been sad for me watching WCW has been watching Nash, because he comes in, he's a master blaster. Then he was Oz. Then he was Vinny Vegas, and all of this is terrible. And Vinny Vegas seems to be closest to who he actually is, because he's playing up his charisma or whatever. But he looked like a big goof, and he looked goofy so many times, and it just makes me smile because, like Glenn Jacobs, you see this guy numerous times over the course of the years, and you notice that face. But as a kid, you didn't think about, like, wasn't this guy Oz? Like, wasn't this guy Master Blaster? Like, wasn't this guy, like, you don't think about it. So it's very weird. Yeah, Ricky Morton as a heel was stupid, and it made no sense, especially for him to be in the York Foundation. It was dumb. Um, but they also did something that I thought was very entertaining too. They did beautiful Bobby Eaton versus Ric Flair, 2 out of 3 falls for the world title at a Clash of the Champions show, and I was like, whoa! I never would have pictured Bobby Eaton wrestling for the title. Both Steiners have wrestled for the world title before. Luger was actually a good champion too. Oh wait, Kevin Owens talking. Let's see what he's talking about. First Money in the Bank ladder match. My first back pay-per-view seats on that. Realize you're still kind of new. You gotta be specific. Can you put that Money in the Bank ladder match? Right. It's my first Money in the Bank ladder match, but it's not my first Money in the Bank pay-per-view, is it? Because that was last year when I powerbombed John Cena on the apron. Took him out for weeks. Of course, remember that. See, because everything I do is quite memorable and very special. That's what my mom tells me all the time. In fact, Chris, realize this. I realize that sicker people can't still keep the spotlight. But this is my. It's Kevin Owens. He's bigger. Yeah, better watch it. You're gonna get another chip tooth. Oh. I don't steal spotlights. I am the spotlight. As a matter of fact, in the world, I'm the only shining bright genius created. I know. First of all, you did it. Second of all, it's kind of funny. You created it, but you think about another match. Have you? Didn't win the first one, didn't win the sixth one, didn't win the one that took place in Apple. No. And you know what? You're not going to win tonight either, because I plan on beating you
and everyone else and getting that contract. Yeah. Like plans. No, I never heard that. I'm pretty sure you just made that up. Yes, you did. Confucius said it.
Confucius said it. No, he did not. Oh boy. I saw Alberto. Wait a minute. Let me turn it down. I don't care. I just saw Alberto Del Rio on AAA, and he looks like he snorted half of Argentina. My goodness. For starters, he's still in great shape, but he's growing this. I think it's like a goatee or a beard or something. And he was on AAA, and he looks coked out of his mind. I don't know what is Conan doing, continuously booking this guy. I know he's a big star in Mexico, but he looks like he's off his gourd recently. And it's hilarious because he's been having these problems for years. and, and he's able to go back to Mexico and looks more and more like a drug kingpin every time I see him. And it's sad that every time I see a Mexican wear a suit or something like that, I think drug dealer, but he looks like a drug dealer and a drug user at the same time. He looks like the guy who used to supply Tony Montana. Oh. Okay. I started talking about Alberto Del Rio and his bugged out coke eyes. It was hilarious. Oh no, Baron Corbin. Who's he about to wrestle? Johnny B. Bad was a fun character and I liked his feud with DDP. I like DDP's mid-90s heel run anyway. Yeah, he was a fun character, man. Johnny B. Bad was not bad. I know he's one of those guys that people overlook because it was early 90s WCW, but he stands out. He's one of those guys, like, again, he would do his entrance and it's very weird, and he's wearing pink lipstick or whatever. And then he starts shadow boxing or really getting in there, and you'd be like, wait a minute, guy's in great shape. He's athletic. He knows how to throw a punch. He's got some fire to him. When he was a heel, he was kind of fun. Like, I see why Vince may have seen that and thought he was a guy worth bringing in. And I still think Mark Miro had something, but then Russo happened and made him boxer Mark Miro, and that fucked everything up. High flying Mark Miro, that was good. I think he could have been a top guy with that, at least for a little while. But then they did what they did. This not about to be one-on-one, is it? This Dolph Ziggler Baron Corbin thing, because I'm definitely gonna have to find something else to talk about. I have no interest in watching Baron Corbin wrestle Dolph Ziggler. Top Dog says it really seems like 90s went on. Besides Sunday Night Heat and stuff, weekly shows got more rare and rare. The weekend shows became C shows, and they were trash during the Monday Night Wars era. So a lot of those shows weren't worth watching. The Velocities. I know there are certain people who make a lot of money because they watch those shows and clip those shows and do videos and stuff about it. I cannot sit and watch Velocity and Jacked and all that. I just don't have the time, bro. So I watch some of that stuff, but once it's get into the C show territory, I can't watch that stuff, man, because there's no storyline elements to it. It's just matches, and recaps, and I can't take it. If I was getting paid to do that stuff, I probably would. Oh God, it is a one-on-one match. Ew. What superhero would you pick to be real and include their rogues gallery? Oh shit, that's a good question. Which one would I pick to be real? It wouldn't be Superman because that would bring Brainiac. It would bring, all these crazy aliens who would just destroy half the goddamn planet. Um, Maybe Spider-Man because I mean Green Goblin and all those guys, Doctor Octopus, they're dangerous, but they're not bulletproof. I think the Rhino is bulletproof. I think Tombstone is bulletproof. But the most of Spider-Man's villains, you can just shoot them, and that'd be it. But Superman villains, nah, I'm not. You can't really there's a lot of those guys you just can't shoot. You can't nuke where they come from, and then that's it. So it'll probably be somebody, probably the Punisher, maybe. I wouldn't want to live in a world with people with superpowers. I can tell you that much. I wouldn't like that. Vocal King says, "Remember the Raw ending when New Day all serious and they beat up John Cena, only to turn back to idiots the next week." I have no mentality of that at all. Mitch Colburn says, and yet they named him after a Chuck Berry song. To be fair, Tutti Frutti and Longtail Sally make terrible names for a male wrestler. Yeah, I don't know why they chose to do a Little Richard parody, but name him after Chuck Berry song. Like that's strange. Like that was so weird, But it worked as a gimmick. There were 2 roadblocks this year. Oh, okay. Okie dokie. That's still stupid. That's dumb. That's very dumb. What's my favorite Dusty Rhodes match? Bull Rope match versus Superstar Billy Graham. Starcade versus Ric Flair. I forget which match with Harley Race that I really liked. I forget which one it is. I probably would know it if I saw it again. Those were usually my favorite matches with Dusty. Is when he was wrestling like tippy top guys. I think he may have had matches like Tully Blanchard that I liked too. I think he had was it a First Blood match or something like that he had with Tully Blanchard that I really liked. Um, let's see what else. The thing is, I just don't know like dates for like NWA stuff, so I know who his opponent was, but since I don't memorize the dates and all that kind of shit, it's hard to remember. But it's a lot of stuff there. Baron Corbin versus Dolph Ziggler is 13 minutes. Oh, the Wild Man promos were less than stuff. He was never really a great talker. The thing is, he was still playing a over the top character as Wild Man Mark Merrow, and it would have worked, I think, because he didn't need to be a great promo. He just had to be, the character, the gimmick. He just had to be loud. And when he came out with the cape and everything, it was badass. With his moveset, it was badass. I think part of it was the aborted storyline that they did between him, Triple H, and Mr. Perfect. That was great. And it seemed like it was going to go somewhere. And then Mr. Perfect left. And then everybody was just kind of like, Triple H had the belt, so that was great. Mr. Perfect was gone. And then Mark Merrow, who was the guy who got gypped out of the title, he didn't get any revenge on Triple H. And he couldn't feud with Mr. Perfect because he was gone. So he kind of got hosed. And then everybody fell in love with Sable, and then that happened. But I think there was definitely something that could have happened. Pre-Hogan era wrestling matches are underrated. They absolutely are. But what underrates them mostly is the energy. Crowd energy in the territories is next level. That's the one thing I think they got over modern day. If you go watch like Mid-South and World Class, when the Vine Erics is wrestling the Freebirds, or even when they're wrestling like Ric Flair or Harley Race or when they're in there with gentleman Chris Adams when he was a heel, or Gino Hernandez, my God, bro, those buildings used to rock. Like that would get you through the show. Like you wouldn't care about anything, but even if you don't know who these people are, you're like, Dutch Mantel, whatever. But then like the Freebirds will come out there, or Gino Hernandez, or somebody like that will come out, and the crowd would just be so into it, it'll carry you through the rest of the show. And it was the same thing with Mid South. The shows didn't last that long. The shows are about an hour, which means they're about 40 minutes with 20 minutes of commercials. So you can watch 3 or 4 episodes before you get bored. And the crowd will carry you through all of those shows. And you'll really be excited about it. Those are the years before Hulk Hogan took over. You know, even to a degree during Hogan. Late '80s, world class. Yeah, late '80s world class. Mid '80s, Mid South. I think late '80s Mid South not so much. Mid Atlantic, I started watching some of that stuff back in the early '80s. I didn't get that far, but I've been dabbling in that too. What about Batman villains? Uh, there's too many genocidal maniacs gassing people, you know, and ninjas and ninja clans and stuff trying to destroy the city. I have nah. I mean, you could kill Two Face. That's pretty easy, Two Face and the Penguin. You can kill those guys yourself. But like, who the hell wants like Deadshot, Deathstroke, and all those guys running the city? I don't think I want those kinds of guys running the city. Um, that's also why I wouldn't say Daredevil. Even though Daredevil's like a lot of his enemies are, people that you might be able to handle on your own. But like, who the hell wants to deal with the Hand? Like who the hell wants like zombie ninjas floating around your town all day? Or Bullseye. Like, nah, no, I pass. I want to pass on that. Alan Moore or Garth Ennis? Which of these two non-superhero writers would you read more of? I've read both. I've read probably more Alan Moore because of V for Vendetta and of course Watchmen. But I think I've read more Garth Ennis now that I think about it, because I've read all of Preacher, and I think that's 6 volumes. I'm looking at it on my shelf right now. It's 6 or 7 volumes, and he also wrote Hellblazer, Constantine, which I really liked. So I probably read more Garth Ennis, and I liked his Punisher. Um, Alan Moore, outside of Watchmen and V for Vendetta, I've read League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. I've read some of From Hell. I read some of that. I don't think I read the whole thing. Um, but I probably have read more Garth Ennis. But I think Garth Ennis is not as good a writer as Alan Moore. I think Alan Moore is definitely a better writer. Dusty is Mitch Colburn's blueprint for a babyface. I think he does a great job as a babyface, but my template is usually more Hulk Hogan. I get why Dusty, the average guy, very, a guy that people can relate to. I get that, but I'm more of a superhero kind of guy. Top Dog said he was talking to some older wrestling fans before '80s wrestling with Ric Flair, Hogan, Dusty, Sting. Sting in the '80s? That would be late '80s. When did Sting come in? Like 87, 88? Yeah, that would be late '80s. Dusty would have been in the early '80s, because by the late '80s, Dusty was kind of washed. Um, I like Dolph Ziggler, but I have no interest in watching Baron Corbin. I just don't care enough about this. I don't even know what the story is going into this match either. They didn't tell me anything. So, what do I think was the best babyface run John Cena had? 06. Easy. That 06 run was top notch. Um, I would technically say it begins in 05, but he really started cooking in 06. Right around WrestleMania time. He started cooking. Dolph isn't with the Fed anymore, but bitch ass Corbin is. Life ain't fair sometimes. Well, it should make you feel better that Dolph Ziggler had been around 10 years at this point. So Dolph was in the Spirit Squad in 2006. So this is his 10th year in the company when this match has happened. So, and I don't think Baron Corbin has been in the company 10 years yet, unless it's been just over 10 years. So if you feel bad about what's going on with Dolph, just realize that Dolph was in the company 10 years when you watch this match. He had already been there for 10. So Gino was great. If he didn't have his demons, he would have gone a long way. I also like Gary Hart and Kabuki, Michael Hayes too. WCCW is my favorite territory, that or Crockett. Either I would say world class or mid south. I probably would say mid south because I like the booking style of Bill Watts. And but they're neck and neck for me. I haven't fully watched all of Crockett. I would have to watch more Crockett. But I breezed through mid south and world class because that stuff was good. I mean, that stuff was really good. It didn't have like the dry nature of some territory wrestling. It was hot, and the crowds were hot. And they were able to get people I really don't care for over, like Terry Taylor and stuff. But yeah, like the Great Kabuki, he was so good. The only issue is Kabuki was treated like a chump, like he was, beat up by the Von Erichs a lot. But then again, that was everybody. But it seemed to hurt him more. Him and King Kong Bundy, they seemed to be hurt more by not really being able to get over on the Von Erichs. Like those were kind of like the guys. King Kong Bundy especially should have been a guy that they should have done something different with. You know, that Dusty Cage match with Flair in '86, both of them bloody, was great. Yeah, they really don't miss. Dusty could work when he really wanted to. I know he got a bit of a reputation for being not the best, but Dusty could really work when he wanted to, man. Like he could hang. Swamp Thing, I haven't read Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is not really up my alley, if we're being honest. Um, so I never read that. Who would you rather get hunt down by Deadshot or Deathstroke? Uh, I think the outcome is the same either way, but I think when it comes to Deadshot, you probably wouldn't see it coming. So probably Deadshot. Probably Deadshot. He says Mitch Colburn says, I guess maybe as a promo, Hogan had that too in '89 and '95 with a terrible babyface character. I think Hogan got a little hammy in the '90s. He was great in the '80s, but in the '90s he got a little weird, especially around '91. Hogan started getting kind of, and I think because it's mostly because it's been 6 or 7 years of that. At that point, you're like, okay, it's time for the Hulkster to do something else. But considering it was working, nobody really cared. I think definitely that the peak of Hulkamania was WrestleMania 7. Right after he lost to the Ultimate Warrior, I think it was about time to do something else. Like I was fine with Hogan being the top guy and being, quintessential babyface, but I certainly think he needed to take a different edge, and he was still doing that shit 3 years later. Oh boy! So and then he was still doing it 5 years later because he's doing it in WCW too. Top Dog says the older people I work with prefers '80s era with WWE and the territories over the Attitude Era, which I find refreshing because '80s wrestling is kind of forgotten nowadays. Yeah, that's the best thing about the network is that you can go back and watch that stuff, and it was amazing. It was a fun product. You weren't overthinking it. There wasn't too many stupid gimmicks, but there were some. Um, Charlotte. Oh my goodness, I forgot when Dana Brooke was Charlotte Flair's mentee, I guess you could say, her protege. What was the blow off to this angle? I don't remember this angle at all. Outside of, I remember her being Charlotte Flair's protege. I just don't know where it went. And Charlotte was way too young to have a protege. And I think Dana Brooke is even older than she is. Mitch Colburn says Corbin is basically the same tier of performer as Dolph, good utility player. and stepping stone to get the younger stars over. Oof. Mark Merrill is Italian. He's not black. He only looks black, and everybody thought he was black, which is why the Little Richard thing worked, because everybody thought he was black and he was. Randy Savage, Mark Merrill, and Taz. They all got over on me because I thought they were black and they weren't. They were just brown skinned Italians. Uncle Irwin Bundy. Oh my God. Yeah, Alan Moore did write Swamp Thing, and I never read it. Corbin got signed in 2012. Oh, so it's been 12 years. Oh, brother. Can Triple H put a mask on? I don't think a mask can save him at this point, bro. I just want to know, like, is he doing stuff backstage or something? Like, why would you hold on to Baron Corbin so long? Okay, so Charlotte's about to wrestle Becky Lynch. Interesting. This is Becky Lynch before she really got over. So this ought to be interesting. This steampunk Becky Lynch. The last kicker, as they call her. I always called her steampunk Becky. And nobody ever explained why she was doing this. What was the point of the steampunk stuff? Especially the hat. Like, what was the point of that stuff? But at least she wasn't a leprechaun anymore. That leprechaun shit sucked. Oh no! Oh no! Intercontinental title 94-95 was the most prestigious it had ever been. Today they're trying to modernize the prestige of it, and yet it's still. Well, I question that because Shane Douglas was the champion in '94, and he won the title because Razor Ramon. Well, he won the title because Shawn couldn't wrestle. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and he lost the belt to Razor Ramon in 10 minutes. And then Razor was the champion. That was great. I think Diesel won the belt from him. That was great. And then Shawn won it after Razor won it back. And then Jarrett was the champion. Shawn never lost the belt. I think Jarrett beat Razor for the title. Jarrett had a pretty good run too, and then Jarrett lost to Shawn, and Shawn was the champion, and he ended up vacating. Shawn never got beat for any titles, so I'm pretty sure he vacated. And '96, that's when Ahmed Johnson and Mark Merrill and all those guys started taking up the belt. Oh, it's a tag team match. It's even worse. I thought it was a singles match at the very least. Savage is Italian and Jewish. His daddy's Italian, but his mom is Jewish, I think. Yeah, Dean Douglas. That shit was terrible. I'm actually kind of glad people don't go back and watch the '80s because they would. The problem with it is a lot of people don't know how to leave things in the past, and so they see gimmicks like Kamala or the Great Kabuki, and they be like, "Oh, look at the racism! Like, there's German heels." It's like, yeah, there's German heels. There's Russian heels. So what? But you can't have real conversations with people about like territory wrestling. About guys who weren't Indians wearing the war bonnets and stuff like that. Oh, he's not a real Indian. I'm like, so what? For God's sake, come on. Yep, Kabuki was actually the first. The Great Muta was actually in honor of the Great Kabuki. He actually stole his gimmick. It's interesting because Kabuki never really. I don't think he actually really worked anywhere else. Like he never really got over anywhere else outside of World Class. Mitch Colbert says, didn't Kamala himself have some part in coming up with the character? Yes, it was a collaboration between himself and Jerry Lawler, if I remember correctly. And Lawler was the one who drew like the stars on him and the moon on his belly and stuff. So he had a lot to come up with his own character, and it worked. This was a guy who couldn't get gigs as what was it Sugar Bear Harris? I think he was called as when he was wrestling at first. He couldn't because he sucked and he couldn't really work. But it actually helped the Kamala gimmick for him being a savage that he couldn't technically wrestle. So he ended up being a huge draw everywhere he went, body slamming Andre the Giant and all kind of shit. But everybody just sees Kamala, he's wrestling barefoot, and they're like, "Oh, it's racism." Ugh. I'm like, "Oh God, fuck. Okay, never mind. Never mind." I don't know how many YouTube videos I see of is wrestling racist, and it's just pictures of Kamala. You're like, bro, come on. If you're gonna say racism, at least go with Saba Simba. Again, that's the one thing I would say. Like, people just don't know enough about stuff. Saba Simba is like the most racist gimmick WWF has had outside of Muhammad Hassan. Saba Simba is like legit racist, and it's stupid too because it didn't even fit the guy that meant to play the character. It didn't even fit him, so it was just stupid all the way around. WG Field says, "Would you want to be the Hulk who can revert back to human, but always on the run, or Spidey's curse, where depending on the writer, you get cucked by a black guy or not? Who killed?" I don't know, man. The Hulk gets cucked a lot too. Like, he can never really be happy. Like, the thing with neither one of them can really be happy. The Hulk can never be Banner forever and just be happy being himself. He's always going to be on the run because people want the power of the Hulk, or they want to destroy the Hulk or kill him or capture him, which is even worse. And that often caused him to lose his love interest a lot too. Spider-Man can have a normal life, but he chooses duty over everything else, and that causes all kinds of social problems. So I probably would rather be Spider-Man because while Spider-Man is considered a menace and all this kind of stuff, that's manageable. Like, the U.S. military is trying to find Bruce Banner no matter where he's trying to hide on anywhere on Earth. He tries to go to a cave and there's like some kind of helicopter looking for him or whatever. It's like, I can't live like that. I don't want to live like that, bro. Yeah, the I Got Kid story was great. And I believe that was in 2016, wasn't it? What was the peak of Ric Flair's career? Oh shit, mid 80s. I also think Flair was a guy who probably shouldn't have been main event in the 90s, but he didn't have much of a choice. WCW was terrible, so they really didn't have much choice. And that's one thing Jim Herd tried to do, is try to move on from Ric Flair. And I think that people gave him shit for that, but it was necessary because Flair had already been top guy for 10 years or whatever by that time, off and on. Especially he had really been on since like 83. So if you're looking at 1991, 1992, you're talking about 8 or 9 years of Flair. And Jim Herd, despite the fact that he was getting, bitched out by everybody for all the changes he was trying to make, and a lot of his changes were stupid as shit. One thing trying to move away from Flair was actually smart, because he was trying to make new stars. And you could see in early WCW that Sting was clearly their top guy, and everything was about Sting and about marketing Sting and making sure Sting was in the middle of a feud that mattered. And even though there was silly stuff like people coming out of boxes or whatever, Sting was featured and he was clearly the top guy. And it worked. It made the product so much fresher when Sting was the top guy and it wasn't Flair. And even though people didn't really like Luger, I think Luger was a great foil for Sting. The Ron Simmons experiment, I don't know about that, but it was better than Flair. It was just too much Flair. I'm not saying that Flair was bad, but I'm just saying, like, the Horsemen have been around for years at this point, and now you're still trying to do it in '92. It's not really going well, right? Mitch Colburn said he also mentioned Crime Time, which again the performers themselves came up with. That is absolutely true, and people don't listen to the video. They don't listen to like the shooter interviews of JTG telling people how it was originally just him as the neighborhoody, and he came up with Crime Time. They don't seem to care, and he's like, okay, well, whatever, bro. Like, it's just you got to do more than just look at how people are dressed and that kind of thing. Sometimes people pick these gimmicks for themselves, and you just have to run with it. You know, they use it to get their foot in the door. Loki says, "Does Freakazoid count as a superhero? The Warner Brothers DC should do a live-action Freakazoid. It could be DC's Deadpool." It seems like you're a guy with his head on his shoulders. Freakazoid was a big thing when I was a kid. I never really watched it because I was a little old to be watching Freakazoid. But yes, I believe Freakazoid is a Warner Brothers character. Um, if I remember correctly, he might be. And he seemed to be a guy they left in the 90s, like the Tick. The Tick was another one that was very popular in the 90s. They never went back to it. Mitch Colburn says he likes shock value storylines. The Hawk draws, Terry miscarriage, Chairs, Mariana, the Beaver cleavage had no business ever been on TV. I guess you mean you didn't like that stuff? Because I didn't. Whoa, what's this about? One of Natalia's 100 shitty heel turns. Not having Flair around did hurt Ron Simmons as champion, though. No Flair, he's gone. No Rude, career shortened due to injury. He had already beaten Vader, so there was no credible heel foils. That is true. That is very true. Why didn't they bring back Butch Reed? That would have been the obvious answer. Was Butch Reed injured? Because they were in Doom the year before that. So it would have been nice for them to have. They could have brought in Butch Reed. And Butch Reed wrestled Flair in one of those main events of the Clash of the Champions. It was non-title, if I remember correctly, but they wrestled. It was pretty fun. But you're right. A lot of the guys that they had built up to be top heels, they really weren't doing much of anything when Simmons was champion. If I remember correctly, Barry Windham, they was building up to be champion. I think he was gone by that time. I think he went to WWF. At least I think so. I'm trying to remember. Where was Wyndham? No, Wyndham was a babyface because he turned babyface in like early 90s. Maybe he was a babyface. Mitch Coleman says WCW already not drawing thanks to large part to the silly. So Simmons' run as champion should get a pass. One guy alone doesn't draw, except for maybe Hogan. I agree. I think they gave Simmons the title with no plan, and that seems to be what they do when you're just a transitional champion. They give you the belt, but they don't give you a plan. And it's just like, we're going to do this thing. And to be quite honest, they gave him the belt too late. They should have gave him the belt in the Luger feud, because they did the angle where Luger wanted him to be his driver, and that was hot. That was hot. I just watched that yesterday. It was on Clash of the Champions when they did that. And it was reminiscent of the Triple H Booker T segment. Problem was, he didn't win. That's the problem. You can't do stuff like that and then the guy loses or gets disqualified or whatever. You can't do that. He has to win. So when Ron Simmons finally did win it, it was a little late, but he should have beat Luger for it. And he still would have gotten to wrestle Vader and all those guys. It would have been other people for him to wrestle. But yeah, they jammed him up. It was unfortunate. Yeah, Cactus would have been a good opponent. Cactus would have been fun. And the fact of the matter is, he would have had he would have been different for Ron. In terms of, Ron was a big, tough athlete. To put him in a situation where he had to fight for his life against a psycho like Cactus Jack, that would have been fun. That's what made the Cactus Jack Sting matches fun. Is that we need some McFoleys in wrestling. Somebody who brings out a different side of the guy. This is what the positive to like a John Moxley would be. You get a guy in there whose specialty is like fighting, brawling. Not traditional pro wrestling, and he's gonna do some weird stuff, and he's tough. You know, he's going to eye gouge and bite, and he might, take a sick bump on the floor, or something like that. You need those kinds of guys. And I think Ron Simmons definitely could have benefited from Cactus Jack, but I don't think he was there in 92. At least I don't think he was there long. Well, he definitely was there, but I don't know what he was doing at that time. But he would have been a good opponent. He had already wrestled Sting and everything too, so he already had the pedigree of being a top guy. Oh my God, it's Sheamus. Look at him. Look at the state of him. What is this? He's in better shape now than he was then. Oh my God, Mohawk Sheamus. Sheamus started in 2008. Oh, he's going to wrestle Apollo Crews? New era. Oh, wow. That didn't happen at all. Gatekeeper Sheamus. Okay, so oh no, he got a nose ring, a septum ring. Why would he do that? Why would you do that to yourself, Shamo? Okay, so Apollo Crews versus Sheamus. I'm not against this. So let's see where this goes. I'm instantly interested. Ron Simmons headbutting Cactus Jack with the helmet would have been cool as shit. Yeah, him trying to football tackle this guy onto the floor would have been great. The crazy thing is, Cactus Jack was taking crazy bumps in mid-card matches, not even feuds, but mid-card matches. Just randomly taking bumps to the floor on concrete, just random, even after the match, for God's sake. He could have took crazy bumps for Ron Simmons. I don't know why they wouldn't book that, though. So I'm thinking, like, maybe he wasn't around. Oh, shit. He stole on Shamo? Yeah, I think he's going to wrestle on SmackDown this Sunday. I mean, this not this Sunday, but this Friday. Because he's in a feud with Legado del Fantasma. That Shawn Michaels versus Mankind match in '96 was great. It brought up more vicious side to Shawn Michaels. Yep, and they had two of those things. They had one on Raw too, and Shawn actually won that one. Which I believe that one was before the was it before or after Mind Games? It's one of them. But he had two of those matches with Foley. I think the Raw one was more traditional, and Shawn won that. And then the Mind Games match was just like insanity. It was chaos, and everybody pays no mind to the fact that it was like a disqualification. But you need those kinds of guys. You need the Abdullah the Butchers. They just can't be overexposed. This is what Bray Wyatt I thought was interesting with the way he worked his gimmick. Is a little too supernatural, but if he could have worked that brawling style, then to really test the champions and all that kind of stuff, it would have been great. AJ3 says, how far Sheamus has come. I remember when he first debuted on ECW, and then not too long, he became the WWE champion. Was that hot shotting? It absolutely was hot shotting. And amazing. I think I said this before, how his career was front loaded. Like, he won everything possible in the first 4 years. And like 2012, Sheamus was main eventing every fucking show, pretty much, and was world champion all the time. And then by around this time, 2016, 2017, Sheamus couldn't win anything. I think he might finally won the King of the Ring, and then he was a jabroni after that too. And now he's kind of back to being a solid mid-carder, gatekeeper. Only 8 minutes? All right, that's solid. That's not bad. 8 minutes is fine for television. I don't understand why they gave them fewer minutes than Baron Corbin and Dolph Ziggler, but okay. Most people hated 2016. I remember seeing on Twitter that people hated it. But then again, everybody all of a sudden hates everything before 2022, specifically before Triple H took over. Now everything's perfect and everything's great. which is stupid. Sheamus, he won the title when he beat Roman Reigns. That was 2016, yes, and then he 2015. Yeah, no, it was it 2016 or 2015? It's 2015. You're right. And he was champion. He wasn't champion long though. He was champion for like a week, maybe, and then he lost the belt to Roman on that Raw in Philly when everybody, Roman's isn't over except for that Raw in Philly when everybody was going crazy after he headbutted or whatever. Superman punched Vince. He was super over after that. And then they did that stupid League of Nations thing, and that killed everybody involved. Everybody involved got less over, including Roman. So that was no good. That was a miss by the old man. Should just left Sheamus alone, or maybe Sheamus and one other guy. But that League of Nations thing was terrible. That was a bad idea. Wasn't a very good idea. I want to know what his idea. Why did he come up with that? Why did he do that? Why League of Nations, Vince? What was the relevance to that? What was that supposed to be? But they set it up pretty cool though, with him forcing him to defend the title in the Royal Rumble. It was just unfortunate that Triple H won it because nobody wanted to see Triple H versus Roman Reigns. That was just Triple H ego being what it is. Triple H 2016 was heavily liked from the SmackDown side. It seems like most people were okay with SmackDown until Ambrose became the champion. Because I think, wasn't Ambrose the champion and Bayley was the champion too? And I remember that Bayley run being an absolute flop. Because I think there was that feud with Ember Moon. Was that in 2016? Because that was trash. And then Ambrose was the champion. And he was wrestling like Dolph Ziggler. This was at SummerSlam, so this is like not long after this event. And that was trash too. And then most people were kind of like, "Oh, 2016 is trash." Like I wasn't a big fan of like Dean Ambrose being the champion, and I wasn't a huge fan of Bayley as the babyface champion. But Dolph Ziggler was an also ran that nobody believed in, and Ember Moon never got over. Even after that, she's not over now. She's been Ring of Honor champion for like 3 years, and she's still not over. Ambrose and Becky. So I'm thinking, when was the Ember Moon Bayley match? Was that 2018 then? Because I was thinking about, I remember Ambrose being the champion, and I know that was at 2016 because we're about to watch him win the title. But I could have swore Bayley was the champion too at the same time. But I could possibly be wrong. I'm doing this stuff off my memory. I don't remember these things. Oh yeah, they hadn't had a SmackDown Women's Champion yet, right? As far as this is concerned, Bayley was on Raw. The Ember Moon feud. Okay, 2019. All right. Okay, that makes sense. I do remember her being called up to Raw because I remember her getting booed on TV, which everybody knew was going to happen. And plus, it wouldn't make sense because Ember Moon went on the main roster in 2016 anyway. I think she was still in NXT. Or she hadn't even come in yet. Because I think she ended up wrestling Asuka, but I think that was like 2017. So she probably didn't even on the TV yet. I must have got her mixed up with somebody else. Oh, that was a nice belly to belly we got there. Oh, shit. Ambrose versus Ziggler at SummerSlam was buried moment. Dean Ambrose did that interview. But Steve Austin would also try to get personal with Ambrose. I can't believe they even aired that. Because I heard it was bad before it even came out. And then they aired it anyway. and that was kind of it for Ambrose. But he was already on the downslide anyway because he wasn't booked well as champion. He was also given the belt with no plan because his main foils were on Raw, if I remember correctly. What version of Stone Cold do I like better, 96, 97 or 98, 99? 96, 97 Austin. When he was feuding with Bret Hart. That was peak Stone Cold to me. You know, I like that. We need heels like that in wrestling too. Antagonist. He's an antagonist. He picked that fight with Bret. You know, like that's most people don't even remember that. We need like antagonist heels. And it was random too. Like there was no real reason for Austin to start picking a fight with Bret Hart. He just did it. And it worked. He made his career. We need guys like that to just go around picking fights. I feel bad for Apollo Crews. I really do, man. He's a really talented guy who just never seemed to get a break. And the one time he did get a break, everybody screamed racism, and then that killed it. Well, I liked Steve Austin, during the Attitude Era. I'm not going to say I didn't like him, but I've I've told my story 100 times that he's one of the reasons why I stopped watching. Like when Undertaker and Kane couldn't beat him in one match, I was kind of like, all right, this is kind of dumb. But that's the nature of WWF booking their superhero characters. Oh, a crucifix pin. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Alliance leader Steve Austin was slept on. The invasion was bad, but some of Stone Cold's best matches in his career. Uh, I don't like 2001. I really don't. Uh, One of my 2000 and 2001. I know that was probably the most over stuff WWF has done, but that's when I stopped watching. Like there's a reason why I stopped watching it, and I haven't gone back to those things, and I no longer remember them fondly. So, like, there's just a reason why I don't like stuff from '99, 2000, 2001. I just don't like it because that's when I stopped watching. I stopped watching in like late '98, early '99, and Triple H ran me off totally. But Triple H was the reason why I couldn't come back. Him being on Raw was terrible. I couldn't deal with it. It was worse than the Sasha Banks one because Sasha Banks at least talked, and she talked about herself all the time. But at least she talked. But Ambrose was terrible. He just came across like a weirdo. He didn't come across as being personable. He didn't give Austin anything. He didn't work with Austin at all. In terms of answering questions or anything like that. At least Sasha was willing to talk. She made herself look stupid, but like people walked out of there thinking like, man, her ego is huge. But they already knew that. you know, um, it just didn't do her any favors. But it made Ambrose look like an absolute goof. Battleground. Those flags was kind of hard. Man, I missed Nigerian King, Nigerian Prince, Apollo Crews. It was so much fun. It was so much fun, dog. You know. And then these dorks had to go and ruin it. Okay, now business is picking up. Cena, Styles. This is what we've been waiting for right here, brother. This is what we talking about. The buck stops right now. The crucifix and the roll up, brother. The schoolboy. One of the most lethal moves in all of wrestling. I've seen so many people lose their schoolboy roll ups. It's ridiculous. What's up with this everybody versus the future all of a sudden? Was this an event thing when and Styles is older than Cena? How is he new generation? New era.
This moment for a long time. I respect the hard work. I know it's the world. Welcome back.
It surprises me every day that Vince took AJ Styles so seriously because he doesn't seem like the kind of guy Vince would like. Yeah, I did see that he was one of the guards. That was actually pretty cool. He got his start as being one of the guards. That was pretty cool, man. Uh oh. Uh oh. Oh no, they did not break out the WCW footage. They did bust out the WCW footage. Hell no.
Since my debut here in the WWE, I won 15 world championships. In the very same amount of time, AJ Styles has won more than 15 championships. He has been regarded as the single greatest superstar.
Oh, Cena putting him over hard.
And at long last, the two WWE superstars right now.
Why would they do this match at Money in the Bank? That's what I'm trying to figure out. But this was great promoting from Vince, though. This is when I finally felt like Money in the Bank was bigger than Survivor Series. Is when this match got booked for this show. Low Key 07 says, I don't know if I imagined this, but I could have sworn Vince said that AJ Styles reminded him of Shawn Michaels. You know how much Vince loves him from HBK. It's possible. It's possible. He reminds me of Shawn Michaels. I love me some AJ Styles. I didn't like him at first. I didn't like him when I first started watching TNA. I hated AJ Styles. It took a while for him to grow on me. The AJ in WWE has been cracked throughout the entire run, except for when he was treated like a jabroni for the last couple of years. They was booking AJ Styles like AEW books Will Ospreay. He was kicking out of every fucking thing. That used to piss me off so bad. Like I used to like watch matches like him and Chris Sabin and be like, this guy is like on a completely different plane of existence in comparison to like those other X Division guys. Because he was like the former world champion and everything. I didn't know that at the time. It made more sense once I learned more about TNA. But when I was watching it in like '04 and I had never really seen it before, like watching AJ kick out all these guys' big moves and everything, I was like, man, he killing these dudes. Like, what is this? This is terrible. And then it makes more sense now that I realize like he was world champion before all that stuff. So him being booked stronger than like the regular X Division guys made sense. So it made more sense now. But when I was watching it at the time, I was like, oh hell no, this sucks. If I had to have an HBK versus HBK match, oh okay. Shawn Michaels 20, let's say 2002 versus Shawn Michaels 1995 or 96. That would be crazy. AJ Styles might be the best overall wrestler of all time. Look, moveset, promo, match quality. He is just insane. He is one of the greatest of all time. Absolutely. You know, we're gonna give AJ his flowers one day. It's unfortunate he probably ain't gonna get another title run, even though he probably deserves it at this point. Do you think Bianca versus Rhea or Bianca versus Charlotte next year at WrestleMania? It, probably neither. Knowing Triple H is probably neither. It's probably going to be Bianca and Jade Cargill, man. Around '04, AJ was still considered the ROH darling. Yeah, but he had been NWA champion by that time. I think he won the NWA title in like '02 or '03 in TNA. Um, and when he was doing all the X Division stuff like '04, '05, he looked like Superman, bro. It was ridiculous. Rumor has it AJ may be inducted in the TNA Hall of Fame. I certainly hope so. And I hope that means he gets to wrestle at Slammiversary. That would be fucking cool. You know, I don't think Sean would make it to the ring. You know, Sean versus Sean, it's like, how much? Who's gonna? They're probably get into the locker room and to start doing drugs, and then that'd be it for like whether the match actually happens or not. Bullet Club AJ Styles is also on another level. AJ versus Knox, AJ versus Okada. Yeah, that was tremendous. And that's really when I started seeing him as a guy who possibly could make it in WWE. Is when he started really killing shit in New Japan. But I wanted him in WWE soon as I think when he started growing his hair out and he started doing the Evil Ways theme song. I was like, okay, he could work in WWE at this point. But I still thought maybe he was too small for Vince, you know. But I think Japan really put it over the line. Like I think he needed that Japan run for Vince to be like, okay, he might be the guy. I'm just still flabbergasted that AJ Styles had the career he's had in WWE. Hadn't been world champion that many times either. I think he's only been world champion 2 or 3 times. That's not bad, considering most people never get it. He's had all the matches. He's had wrestled all the best guys. He's main evented shows with and without the title. I don't think there's been a top guy AJ Styles hasn't wrestled. He's had great matches with all these guys too. I think Shawn might be the only one in Triple H. Those might be the only 2 guys he hasn't wrestled. I don't think he wrestled Undertaker either, did he? Oh yeah, he did. He wrestled in the Boneyard match. Yeah, he didn't have a singles match against uh, Undertaker. But I think so many of the guys backstage like AJ that it helped. But this is when I love Cena. Cena was great around this time. He was willing to work with the indie darlings, and he was even willing to put them over. And that's really what engendered John Cena to the indie wrestling fan, is when he was willing to put over Punk, willing to put over Danielson, willing to put over Styles. You know, that's like willing to put over Kevin Owens. Everybody's like, oh, okay, he's not the selfish prick like Hulk Hogan is, or like Shawn Michaels was, or like Steve Austin was, or even to a degree like The Rock was. He was willing to put over these guys, these indie darlings. He was willing to help them. And that kind of started getting people on his side. And that's really one of the things I respected about John Cena. Was he's willing to put over CM Punk and Danielson and all these guys. They probably by all rights, he should never have lost any matches to those guys. But willing to put them over, because it doesn't hurt him to put them over. He was super over. It didn't bother him at all. Cena was not hurt by any of those losses. He's actually more hurt by losses today than he was back then. And that probably gave him a lot of respect with like the hardcore fans, even though it probably shouldn't, because whatever. 24 minutes for this match, worth it. This is a match you have do 30 minutes. It's not no, with AEW they book 30-minute matches for stupid fucking shits. You gotta smarten up, bro. 2016, the year the Bullet closed at their peak popularity. I thought it was 2017 when Kenny Omega was like running around as the champion in New Japan. Was that 2017, 2018? Low Key says Vince wanted to give AJ another title run in 2018, 2019, but AJ didn't want to. He wanted to take time off. Oh, that's not bad. 2018, 2019, he would have. Well, those were Brock years, weren't they? Who would he would have wrestled at the time? Because I honestly don't remember. It'd have been Roman, I guess, right? Because I think Roman was like I don't think he was a champion, but he was like, of course, one of the top guys on SmackDown around that time. Oh yeah, he took time off so his son was playing football. Okay, that's cool. Well, I think this year needs to be the one, because AJ doing some of his best work at 46 is insane, bro. It's literally psychotic that he's was able to do those matches with Cody, and they were so damn good, and he's almost 50. AJ is what Vince wanted out of RVD and Jeff. That is a good point, especially RVD. I think Vince really wanted RVD to be more flexible, and he couldn't do it. Why is Cena throwing these wild punches that's coming from like South Dakota? Anybody can see those punches coming. Better dream match in their prime: AJ versus Shawn or Sting versus Taker. AJ versus Shawn, because there's no year in which AJ is not good, and there's no year in which Shawn is not good. Sting's best year is when he wasn't even wrestling, and Undertaker's best years were what, maybe 07, 06. I think if they would have had matches around that time, they would have been great. Because Sting was still a good wrestler. If they could have had matches in like 2008, they'd have been fantastic. But I think at any point in time you could put Shawn in there with AJ Styles and they would have killed it. He probably only put over Bryan because they were almost brother-in-laws. No, he was also hurt during that time too, so they needed to get the belt off of him. Cena was already putting on good matches before that run. He had 06, 07 matches with Umaga, Shawn, Edge, Bobby Lashley, Khali. Not Khali, but yeah, he was having good matches, but he wasn't putting over indie darlings. And that was one of the reasons why people hated Cena, is because Jericho was kind of an indie, well, not an indie darling, but I could say internet darling. And there's firecrackers going on backstage when my window's open, so you guys probably hear that. But there's a lot of Christian should have been the guy, and Jericho should have been the guy, and this guy should have been the guy. The internet liked those guys better than Cena. But this was around the time where Cena was actually seeing that the internet preferred other people to him, and he was actually willing to help them. And it kind of helped that he lost to Rob Van Dam, but it was kind of seen as a one-off, and it was because Edge helped. So it didn't really turn the tables like him putting over Kevin Owens and AJ Styles and CM Punk and all those guys did. I didn't care that Cena killed the Nexus. None of those guys were over anyway. None of them mattered. So to me, I never was upset at Cena for killing those guys. It was like they were one unit. They all can't be the champion, for God's sake. Who was over in that group? They tried to push Wade Barrett, but he was plain as hell, and he never did anything on his own. He finally got over as Bad News Barrett. That was the time they actually started having him win stuff and get over on people, and then they nuked that one from orbit. If I had a Cena versus Cena, 03 Cena versus 06 Cena, that would have been fun. Or 06, or no, 03 Cena versus 2012 Cena. That would have been great. Cena as sort of a respected main event guy versus the up and coming John Cena. That would have been fun to see how Cena could handle that kind of thing. And that's actually what they were. I think that's what they were going for with Austin Theory and John Cena, but they never let Austin Theory go off. They never let him get his shit in. So it didn't quite work out. I like JBL on commentary too. JBL was always a good commentator. And then all those dorks came up with trying to get him fired. 2003 Edgy Foul Mouth Cena versus PG era McKids 2012. That's what I like. That'd have been great character stuff, to see how Cena could deal with that. A younger version of himself that's hungry and competitive and trying to make the most out of everything. That would have been fun. And I honestly don't think AJ Styles versus John Cena match would have been great if it had happened before this time. Because if it was before 2011 or whatever, Cena probably would have crushed him 15 minutes flat, and Styles never would have won a match. It could only really be competitive at this point in time because they're trying to move on from Cena and they're trying to build Roman. But of course, most people couldn't see that at the time. That Roman was going to be the next guy, and they were really trying to. Well, some people saw it coming, but it was pretty clear that Cena wasn't the guy anymore at this point. Can you imagine Trick Williams being in the same position John Cena was in when the internet was having his way with their favorites? He had to do a job for them, good or bad business. Oh, he's kind of in that position now where everybody can see the star that Trick Williams is, and now he's starting to get a lot of irrational hate from certain corners of the internet. You see Meltzer going out of their way to bury him and all that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure if anybody's even a competent booker, Trick Williams is WWE champion by 2026. If you're even remotely competent. And it shouldn't be that damn hard. He could talk himself over. They were trying to fire JBL because of the Mauro Ranallo thing, right? Yes. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. I saw recently some people who wanted Mauro to come back. Now that Triple H is fully taken over, they're like, "Oh, Mauro should come back." I'm like, man, look, he was okay as the voice of NXT for that time. I'm not sure if I can support him coming back full time or not because some of the pop culture references and stuff that he was doing was super aggravating. I think people are just happy Michael Cole isn't being overproduced anymore because he's still mid. He's still super mid. I don't know why people like him so much now. There has been more matches on this show already than there would be on this Sunday's Money in the Bank. Damn, Cena's coming from like the West Coast with these shoulder tackles. Excellent. Ooh. WG Phil says Morrow seems like a shit stirrer. He tried that JBL thing on Graves. What you mean? I think he tried to pull the whole I'm bipolar and all that bullshit. It's like, bro, you can work, you fine. There's plenty of people bipolar just sort of running around here. They're perfectly fine, dog. Just take your pills, bro. just take your meds. You'll be all right. I wonder when AJ Styles is coming back though. I know he's supposed to be in Japan. I don't know for like the next week or so. I think he's gonna wrestle that Noah show. But I'm saying, is he coming back? Before that, or he's not coming back until after that? Because that's another week from now, I think. Oh, he. Oh yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, man. A lot of the fans didn't like Morrow either, if we being honest. Like there was the people who love Black and Gold NXT, they liked Morrow. But there was a lot of other people who didn't like Morrow. They thought he was annoying. And I was like, because the NXT shows were short, it was okay. But as the shows seemingly, I guess, got longer, he became more and more annoying. Especially when the show was 2 hours from being 1 hour. It was like, oh boy. And a lot of people don't really realize that too. That's a big change. I just saw some people earlier saying that, oh, when the peak of NXT, the Black and Gold years, there was only 5 matches on the card for their takeovers, and nobody had a problem with those shows being short or whatever, or those matches being only being 5 matches on the show. And it was like back then, the NXT shows used to be 2 hours for a pay-per-view, 1 hour for a regular show. So you build up the storylines on the television and you build to the show, the pay-per-view, and that's fine. On the main roster, you got 5 hours of regular television. So you got people being left off the card who are stars, and people are like, yo, why you got, and somebody just mentioned recently Bianca Belair is not going to be at Money in the Bank. And it's like, why would you leave one of your biggest stars off the show? Like there's no good reason for you to not have a match for somebody like Bianca Belair on the show, or Jade Cargill to not be on the show at all. Like, I know they get paid anyway, but what's the good sense for you to not book them for your show? Like that rarely happens. If AJ ever leaves WWE, think he's going to retire and go to AEW. He said he was retiring. He said this is his last contract and he's retiring. I'm pretty sure everybody would understand if Tony Khan gives him an absurd amount of money to wrestle like Kenny Omega or Will Ospreay or something like that, which no doubt they would likely do. And I wouldn't blame him, but he said he's retiring after his WWE contract is over, and I believe him. But I absolutely understand that money talks. So if AJ at 46 says he's retiring, and then we find out that Tony Khan offered him a ridiculous amount of money to do like 4 matches, and he does them, I wouldn't even be mad at him. I would still consider him retired in WWE, like I did with Ric Flair. I don't really even recognize all that stuff Ric Flair did in TNA. I don't pay that shit no attention, bro. Hunter is playing chess with the roster. Wow. Tony Khan and AEW are playing checkers. What they're doing is smart. Is part of what made WWE change the momentum before is a lot of their older guys got taken by WCW. So they took WCW's undercard and lower card guys and then made them stars. And that's seemingly what they're going to do to AEW. They're going to take these guys who went to AEW and they couldn't get over, or they tripped up, or whatever, and they're going to try to make stars out of them. Like, so I'm very interested in what they do with Ricky Starks when he eventually comes over. That's going to be a really good litmus test for other guys who are kind of quote unquote made in AEW that haven't burnt that bridge and have that relationship with Cody. But there's going to be a lot of Triple H is a different monster. So a lot of the guys that's going to be coming from AEW are probably going to be like Malachi Black, like Andrade, Malachi Black, who are there and they feel like Vince fucked them over. He shouldn't have fired them or whatever. Or they didn't get a fair shake under Vince. And Triple H is going to be old Papa H from NXT. I got you, that kind of bullshit. But Vince was smart. Like, he made WWE and a place that the undercard guys and the mid-card guys from WCW can be successful. while the upper card guys didn't have a great run. You know, Steiner didn't have a good run. Nash didn't. Hall didn't. Hogan really didn't either, even though he had the match with The Rock. But the mid card guys, Benoit, Guerrero, Rey Mysterio, they got to make a whole new legacy in WWE. Even Booker T. You know, and that's an underrated thing that happened. Like, yeah, Vince didn't understand DDP, and DDP didn't work. You know, Vince didn't get Sting really. And he did. When he finally did get Sting, he got him late. You know, but there's so many other guys that were in WCW that were WCW mainstays that Vince completely repackaged and did something special with. You know. Low-key says Morrow never did bug me on Strikeforce or boxing, but something about the way he called matches just annoyed me. Get this, Showtime did a documentary on him called The Bipolar Rock and Roller. And the puke face. You go back and look at Hunter's career. Can you name any of his matches are great? Yeah, he had some really good stuff, man. I mean, I'm not gonna say he didn't. His match with Cena was really good. He had a good last man standing match with Shawn Michaels. He had good matches with Foley, great matches with Foley. He never really had a bad match with Foley. Even like the King of the Ring match with Foley was pretty good. He had some solid matches with The Rock, especially that ladder match. I think he got something out of Mark Merrow for the Intercontinental title. That was pretty good. He had a pretty good match with Undertaker at WrestleMania. What was that, 17? That was pretty good. He had good matches with Kurt Angle. Good matches with Chris Benoit. Great match with Taka Michinoku. I think he had a good match with Tajiri as well, and Shelton Benjamin. He was a good wrestler. It was just that I got sick of him so bad. I didn't really hate his matches with Rob Van Dam either. Like, I'm not gonna say he didn't have good matches. It's just that him being the centerpiece of the show was a mistake. That should not have happened. You know, I definitely think that era where he was the world heavyweight champion and he was running Raw was shits. It was the shits. Especially when he was chubby and out of shape in 03 and 02 and 03 when he was hurt and he was still the top guy and he wouldn't just let Goldberg have a run or let Rob Van Dam have a run. Like, that sucked. That was the shit. He had good matches with Randy Orton. Not their WrestleMania match, but they had matches before that was pretty good. That WrestleMania match with Randy Orton was terrible. Just like that match with Roman Reigns was terrible. Man, these fireworks are going crazy. It's gonna be an all-night thing, bro. That shit was bad. When he beat Kane and took his mask, I was like, oh my god. I mean, I was okay with Kane losing his mask, but he should have won the title after that. You know? Triple H never understood his position. He thought he was Harley Race. He was not. He thought he was Ric Flair. He was not. His matches with Batista were great too, especially that Hell in a Cell match. That shit was crack. That was one of my favorite Hell in a Cell matches of all time. Triple H versus Batista at Vengeance. Woo wee. 1, 2, and Cena kicked out that joint. Super Cena. I can't believe Cena took the Styles Clash. What an odd time. There was a time where they was trying to get that move banned. Indie dudes were trying to get it banned. Who do I think is hotter, Anna J or Sky Blue? Anna J, I think. Prettier, thicker. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm. I wish we got a documentary for the new generation era. I wish. It'll never happen, though. They don't give it no respect. He was suicidal after that. I'll never forget that shit. When Yoshitatsu was like, he wanted to die after he broke his neck after the Sky Splash, I was like, oh no. And even I was saying, like, he needed to, like, ban that move after that. Like, he made young Yoshitatsu want to kill himself. He was just miserable. But he was one of many people who got their necks broken within that 1 or 2 year span that the Styles Clash was being used. You know, somebody should do a new generation era documentary and talk about why there needed to be a new generation era. You know, and some of the stuff that was going on during that time, like the company's financial struggles. You know, trying to find new top guys. Ahmed Johnson becoming Intercontinental Champion. Farouk. Most of the new generation are dead. What do you mean? You got Shawn, you got Nash. Well, Razor is dead, but you got Waltman, Brett's still there. Flair was there at the beginning. You got Ron Simmons is still alive. Undertaker is still alive. Foley is still alive. Mark Merrow is still alive. Jake Roberts is still alive. Jerry Lawler is still alive. Jim Ross is still alive. How many else? Luger, he's still alive. Yeah, there's quite a few people still alive that's from that era. Yep, Stone Cold. I hate the finish of this match. It was a great match, but I hate the finish. It was a sensible finish though because Styles had used all his big moves already and it hadn't worked. So it was sensible, but I hate this finish. Yeah, man, some of those people who broke their neck on the Styles Clash was crazy. And AJ's response to it was crazy too, because he was kind of like, "Look, it's your fault you broke your neck." I was like, damn, Cook. Triple H still alive too, and he was a big part of the new generation era. The Rock is still around too. He was there. There's a lot of guys you could tell that story for the new generation era. And you could actually tell the story in a correct way because it was actually the lowest drawing time in WWF history. And you could tell the story about why that was and how bad it was. And then of course it could build up to the Attitude Era, which was like 2 years later and ended up being huge. But from 93 to 96, they were trying so many different things. There's a lot of silly characters, but there was some really fun stuff happening. There was that 2-year feud between Brett and Owen. The Harts pretty much took over the company at that point. Once Brett became the champion for good, like the Harts pretty much took over. And there was Harts all over the place at that point. And the Click. Yeah, Hogan was there at the start of it. Because it was Hogan losing to Yokozuna that actually kind of started it. Because they never went back to anybody from the 80s at that point. Except for even Roddy Piper, he was there, but he was there, but he didn't stick around. Warrior was there, but he didn't stick around. Yeah, we definitely need to, like, it would have been nice if we could have. We never get Vince's thoughts in the documentaries anyway. But Bruce Pritchard was there. He can speak on behalf of Vince. He always does anyway in these documentaries. So he was there for that. Michael Hayes was there for that. Bring in guys like Todd Pettengill. You could talk about all the TV shows that they launched that didn't work, like Action Zone, and that could be fun. New Generation wasn't an attempt to get out of the Hogan era. It was. It absolutely was. The only reason that they mention the New Generation era is they talk about it in the context of the steroid scandal, and that they wanted to move towards guys who weren't obviously on steroids. That's the only time they really talk about the New Generation era. But it's like you need to spend some time, man, discussing this vaunted era, my favorite era of wrestling, the New Generation era. I just love like early 90s to mid 90s WWF and WCW. It's fun, It's kind of stupid, it's kind of silly, but it's fun. Low-key says it kind of was, though. I don't blame AJ. Just look upside down. If you don't panic, and it seems simple, really, I would panic, cry, never walk again. I don't think everybody was paralyzed from it, but pretty much a bunch of necks got broken. And that was a tough time for old AJ. Top Dog says, you think of the rise of the 90s, nostalgia, through old 2000s, 2010s, there would have been a New Generation era documentary considering people born in the early to mid 80s were kids at that time. Yeah, you would think so. But they never make one. They never talk about it. I would be very interested in hearing about that time. They just talk about how weird it was, like the trash guy and the Godwins and stuff like that. It's like, yes, but those guys have stories too about why they were like, why were you the Godwins? Like who came up with it? Like did Vince come up with it? Which I'm pretty sure it was Vince. It's crazy lineup of 2016 Money in the Bank. The only two main events of Mania 39 Night 1 are still in the company. Well, yeah. Very weird mix-up here. It's kind of wild how both Hogan and Stone Cold were a part of the New Generation. Yeah, but they were in different parts though. Hogan was there in '93, and he was on his way out. Austin was just coming in and was the ringmaster for the first 2 years. I don't think they'll ever talk about 2008 ever. The thing is, they want to get away from the Chris Benoit disaster. But it would be interesting if WWE would just accept that it happened and talk about it. And I would imagine they would have to do a similar thing about the Vince McMahon scandal. If like, it's always an interesting story in which things are going wrong or not working out the way everybody thinks that they should, and then the company finds a way to pull itself out of it. Like that's been the one thing about WWE that has been special. The company survives pretty much everything. The biggest stars get hurt, they quit, they walk out. The company just it keeps going. The owner gets, blasted with sexual assault allegations and gets pulled from everything, and he pretty much gets nuked from the product. And the company's still going strong, it's doing better business than ever before. Like, it's opportunities there. Chuck says, I just watched the Styles Clash and damn Yoshi, how did that happen? He is still wrestling and recently did an exploding barbed wire death match, so I guess he's fine. Yeah, I think he was out of the ring for like 2 years though. Like, he I think like a couple of days afterwards, he was talking about killing himself and wishing that he was dying. And he disappeared for a while, and then he showed back up like a year or two later. But there was a while there where it was not looking very good for Yoshi. Who was the face? Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels. Who the top guys of the game? It says Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, and Undertaker, essentially. And then you had a bunch of mid card guys. So 1-2-3 Kid, Razor Ramon, Diesel, Hakushi was there for a short time. He was there for like a year. The Pirate, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, who is now PCO, he was there for a year or so. Just Incredible, who was Aldo Montoya, Portuguese Man of War, he was there for a while. Bradshaw was there through the entirety of it, from like 95 to current. The Rock came in 96. Triple H came in 94, 95. Foley came in 96. That's right, smack dab at the beginning of the new generation. Well, the new generation had already began when Foley came in. So Ahmed Johnson came in 94, 95. Jeff Jarrett had come in. Well, Jeff Jarrett had came in early, but he left and came back in like 94, 95. But the top guys were basically Shawn, Bret, and Undertaker, and they basically had their own little universe in which they feuded with guys and didn't really cross over that much. So in 96, 97, when they started actually feuding with each other, that's when things started to pick up. Because that's when you got your first Shawn Michaels and Undertaker match. And I remember that. Me, my boy Young Search, our boy Jerome, Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker at Ground Zero. He was like, whoa. They had been in the company the whole time and had never had a match. Game changed. Like Undertaker had wrestled Bret, but SummerSlam 97, next level. Now there's a feud between Undertaker and Bret. And Shawn and Bret had matches in 92, but they hadn't really touched as main event guys until WrestleMania 96. So you're like, man, those guys are basically in their own universes where Shawn was doing click shit and Bret was doing stuff with Yokozuna and random mid-carders like Jerry Lawler and Yokozuna and stuff like that. And Undertaker was wrestling all the weirdos they could find. So like El Gigante and King Kong Bundy and Mankind when he first came in, so he started really putting some steam behind Undertaker. But those dudes essentially were in their own universe. Like they didn't do tag matches with each other really. They didn't really feud with each other. So, but Sid came in and he feuded with all of them, all three of them. Made money with all three of them. So Sid is the fucking man. So there's so much there to tell the story with. Nash worked with all three of those guys. Razor worked with two of the three. We didn't get a lot of Razor with Bret. We got the big Royal Rumble 93 match, but we didn't get anything else out of Razor and Bret. Razor never faced Undertaker one-on-one, to my knowledge, unless it was on like Superstars or something like that. Of course, Razor and Shawn never had any regular matches. They only had ladder matches. I think they might have had like a match on Raw or something. Bad Bad Bigelow, he's dead now, but of course, but British Bulldog, Owen Hart. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that are dead, yeah. But that was a new generation era, man. Do you think the old McMahon DVD will be worth money in the future? because taking an alleged dump on a skank's head ruined all that. Well, you know what? Praise God. I hope it does because I have a copy of it in the basement. I got that Benoit joint too. I don't know how much people, if I ever become, you know, down bad on money, I'll sell that. I had the Eddie Guerrero joint too. I'd probably sell both of those and the Vince McMahon joint if I ever needed money bad enough. I'm pretty sure that Benoit documentary is probably $300 or something like that. Honestly, nowadays a lot of wrestling fans, especially younger fans, just consider '90s WWE as a whole as the Attitude Era, which doesn't make sense. It really doesn't because it's very different. It's a very different product. The tail end of Hogan, the New Generation, and the Attitude Era is very different products. All three of them are different. Because the tail end of Hogan still had a lot of the '90s stuff, a lot of the '80s stuff in it. Like you still had Warrior running around. You had Sergeant Slaughter. Piper was still something that mattered on the show. But in the New Generation era, most all of those guys were gone. Like Warrior was gone for most of it. He popped back up. He was there in '92, but then he was gone until '96, and then he wasn't even there long in '96, and then he was gone. Piper was there, but he was in and out. Mr. Perfect was in and out too. Flair was there at the beginning at '92. He's the one who put Brett over, which kind of started the New Generation era. But there was no chase, there was no feud. Brett just randomly won the belt, and he had to start building things from there. So that was unfortunate. Come on, Jericho. What's your favorite Fun with Ahmed series on YouTube clips of all time? I don't even know what Fun with Ahmed is. Top Dog says, I noticed that in the 90s as a whole, people only bring up from late 90s, but not the stuff from early to mid 90s. Yeah, because they consider it all to be bad, but it's not. Like it literally is not. It's a lot of it is goofy characters, but then you got Bulldog, and then you got Owen. It's like at any other time in the Attitude Era. Like the Attitude Era, when you look at the top of the card, it's great. Then slightly below that is Val Venus, and it's the Godwins, and it's Beaver Cleavage, and Gangrel, and Naked Median. Like talk about the top guys. Talk about Bulldog and Owen and Bam Bam. But then at the same time, the New Generation era was plagued with a lot of problems. For instance, WrestleMania 11 was one of the worst WrestleManias of all time. Bob Backlund was on that show. Lawrence Taylor, who was a rapist, was the main event of that show. Bam Bam is dead. So, do you really want to talk about WrestleMania 11? So, I mean, you can't really, right? Undertaker had to wrestle King Kong Bundy. King Kong Bundy is dead. So, Backlund's still alive, but he was nutty back then, too. Where do you place the Attitude Era? For me, it begins in '96 and ends with Stone Cold shook Vince McMahon's hand at the end of WrestleMania 17. I think the Attitude Era died when WCW was purchased. So yes, maybe WrestleMania 17 is probably a right way to put it. And I think the Attitude Era began in late '96. Because that's when things started to change a little bit. They became a little bit more of a reality focused product. I think some people say it started with the Cure for the Common Show when Vince McMahon started the show talking about no more baby faces and heels and all that shit. Like they had already begun doing that before Vince came out and acknowledged it. And I don't like that he did that. I can't stand that. Top Dog says he never sees people, at least people under 30s, talk about that stuff from the early to mid 90s. It's always more stuff like N64 when it comes to 90s nostalgia. Well, a lot of the games were not great during the new generation era either, because it was like WrestleMania the arcade game and In Your House, and people had problems with those games because they were different from traditional wrestling games. They were more like Mortal Kombat fighting games. Like the early 80s, the early 90s, I'm sorry, video games were probably better. Like WWF had kind of was trying to create a new identity for itself during the new generation era, and that was throughout the company. That included the way they presented the video games, the way they presented the characters. That's what if you were going to do a documentary on the new generation era, that's what you should focus on. That the company was trying to build, like this was Vince's first time having to define what the WWF is without Hulk Hogan, you know, and a rapidly changing landscape in which the company was in financial trouble due to Hulk Hogan's waning popularity, the Ring Boy scandal, the steroid scandal, and things changing on like video game fronts and all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to talk about there. And the WWF was floundering, you know. And I don't think the steroid scandal has something to do with it. I think the Ring Boy scandal probably had more to do with it than the steroids. But I think what really was doing the damage was trying to market new guys that many people saw as either mid-carders or tag team guys when Hogan was there, and trying to make those your top guys, you know? Because I had that problem after the Attitude Era. I really, and like I said, I remember having a conversation with my cousins, is when I first started watching wrestling again, it was about '04. And I remember when Edge won the title, and one of my cousins had stopped watching wrestling around the same time that I had stopped watching, but he hadn't come back yet. So when I told him Edge was the champion, he was like, the tag team guy? I was like, yeah, the tag team guy. Like, he's much better now. You know, like, he's a singles guy. He's better. And he's like, well, isn't he like Gangrel's sidekick or something like that? And I was like, yeah, he was. But people don't get over it. Like, people don't change their perceptions that easily. And it took for him to really get used to seeing Edge as a singles act to accept him as a main eventer. And it took that for me when it came to Bradshaw as well. So imagine you being an adult during the Hogan era and you hear that Bret the Hitman Hart, who was a tag team wrestler, you know, in the 80s, is now the world champion. You know, Shawn Michaels, who was one of the Rockers, for God's sake, is now, you know, fighting for the world title. You know, somebody is telling you that some guy is an undead zombie and he's a wrestler. It's insane, bro. Like, I can see why people might be like, I don't get it. What's the point? You know, because I did the same thing. I went through that. You know, I remember being on the internet when Eddie Guerrero won the title and nobody bought it. Like, everybody today thinks it's a great moment. Oh, it was tremendous. I remember when it happened. I was on the dirt sheets and people were like, why the fuck is Eddie Guerrero the champion? Like, Eddie's a mid-carder. And I remember people literally coming out and saying it. Like, he's a mid-card guy. Why is he the world champion? And he only was the world champion because Brock was leaving. Nobody thought that, oh, Eddie's one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. Everybody was just kind of like, why this fucking guy is the world champion, bro? You know? Same thing with Chris Benoit. Most people were just kind of like, ugh, he's a mid-carder. Especially if you were a lapsed fan or you weren't a hardcore fan, you didn't really get it. And that's why you when you see people today and they're like, I can't believe Damian Priest is the world champion. You're like, well, yeah, I get it. I understand it. But the new generation era had a lot of that stuff. AJ3 says the fun with Ahmed clips are really a collection of Ahmed Johnson promos where they closed caption what he was trying to say. Holy hell. I need to see that. I need to see that. That sounds like it would be interesting. Oh, shit. Whose genius idea was it to put Sami Zayn in this match? Don't forget the jobbers of the new generation and how many of them transcended to mid-card curtain jerking roster fillers. Well, yeah. You know, like, that was the one positive thing about WWF is they took guys like the Diamond Stud and Vinny Vegas and made them seem like top guys. And by completely changing their personas and characters and stuff. So that worked out. But most people don't respect the change. That's what I was just talking about, you know? It takes a while for people to really see that people are not what you perceive them to be, at least not in perpetuity. Because if you'd have told me, if I was like a full-grown adult in 96 and you'd have told me Shawn Michaels, Marty Jannetty's tag team partner, was the world champion, I'd have scoffed. Because I wouldn't have, you know, especially if I was lapsed and I was not watching it, I would have imagined that he was still in the Rockers as the world champion, you know? And I'd be like, that's ridiculous. Like, who the fuck wants to watch the Rockers in the main event? Oh, shit. That was like, that hurt. This background, is this a Cesaro section, Cesaro? They did all that planting and that stuff didn't work. Top Dog says, which is weird with the Attitude Era. It peaked when that mid-90s grittiness of pop culture fell off and pop music with Spice Girls and boy bands had taken over. It's also weird because the mid-carders from the new generation era became the main event guys of the Attitude Era, which is how wrestling should work. You know, like when Hunter Hearst Helmsley became the world champion, I was still like, that's Hunter Hearst Helmsley. You know, like I have watched him grow into Triple H, but I still just kind of like, that's Hunter Hearst Helmsley, bro. You know, but that's what makes WWE special, and that's why it's still around, is that you see a guy, he comes in, you see him at the beginning where he's bland, he doesn't really got much going for him, and then 5 years later, he's one of the biggest stars in the history of the business. And you're like, how? But if you watch the product, you see how, you know? Like if you watch the product, you can see how the Ringmaster went from being the Ringmaster to being Stone Cold Steve Austin, one of the top guys in the history of the business. You can see how Rocky Maivia went from Die Rocky Die to being a huge movie star. You got to watch the product though, you know? And some people don't give it that kind of time. You know, they look at people and where they are right now and just say, look, you're trash and you're always going to be trash. And then that's it. Like, notice when I started saying people are garbage, it's usually they've been around for a long time. Like Dakota Kai and Dijak and Natalia. They've been around for 6 or 7 years already. People think that I'm just picking on like new talent. Even when somebody's new in NXT and they're not very good, I'll just say, look, they're young. They don't know what the fuck they're doing yet. But if they're around 5 or 6 years, I'm just saying you're trash. And I'm going to call it what I see it. Kevin Owens, he's been around forever. He fucking sucks. You know? Baron Corbin, he sucks. There's no, he's not going to get any better than he is right now. But NXT, I'm willing to watch Izzy Dane miss a kick. She's only been in the business a year. You know? But in 5 or 6 years, who knows? And I try to extend that same grace to AEW talent, with the exception of a few like Wheeler Yuta, who I know is never going to be anything. But for most of the time, I try to be, you know, you never know, because I've watched enough of this stuff, especially if you go back and watch the Attitude Era, not the Attitude Era, but like the territories and stuff, you will see that they take that grind seriously. Guy will come in, he'll grind at the bottom, beat some jobbers, struggle against the mid-card guys, maybe 50-50 booking in the mid-card, and then he'll end up at top and be pretty much unbeatable. And then he's over. He's super over. And you gradually accept him in that top role. you know. But a lot of WWE fans, because they come and they go, is there's so many casuals, they either don't see the grind, and therefore they say, when I saw this guy the first time, he was doing this, and now he's a top guy. That sucks. How can that be? You know, and they don't necessarily see it. D said the same thing happening with Jay right now, where it comes to his singles run. Yes, like people are not really looking at it like, look at the amount of growth Jay has had in 2 or 3 years. Like he certainly deserves to be one of the most over guys on the company. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. You got to watch the product. It's like you keep coming into the movie in the middle and you don't understand what's going on. It's like you can't do that. Not in WWE, maybe in AEW, because they'll just randomly book guys in the main event just because it's his turn and you don't understand the story of how he got there or why he's there. Like, but in WWE, you got to go through the grind portion. And the grind is what makes it interesting when they finally get to the top. Black Fan 87 says Cody Rhodes is a perfect example. Man's went from Stardust to the #1 star in the company. Yes, and people don't understand that. And I know that a lot of people don't like Cody, and I understand why. But there is a reason why it worked, and it worked because people knew he was Stardust. He didn't run from it, and he admits that he was Stardust, and him being Stardust actually helps him because people recognize that was part of his grind. That was part of his story. You know, like if somebody told, like, I recently watched a documentary on Henry Ford, right? And they were talking about the time Henry Ford spent as like a lowly engineer working on trains or something like that. And most people didn't know that happened. They think of Henry Ford, they think of like, oh, he's the name on hospitals and Ford Motor Company and all that kind of stuff. You didn't see the grind, when he was a dirt poor farm kid. You didn't see none of that. And that actually makes you more interested in his story, is when you hear the entire context of his story. He didn't grow off of a tree and start slapping his name on stuff. Like these wrestlers are the same way. WWF has done a brilliant job of showing you how guys can grind. And sometimes that means that you don't bring a guy in and put him on top immediately. Sometimes they do. Piper, Hogan, Savage, they did that. They brought him in, put him on top immediately. Other times you got to watch him grind. And that's what the new generation era was really about, is that you started seeing seeds that were planted in the Hogan era and the golden era in the late 80s, mid to late 80s, start to bear some fruit. A lot of those guys were guys from that time. Bam Bam Bigelow was even one of those guys from that time. So it takes time. Dakota is 36 years old. Right. And she's been in NXT for years already. And she was in the Mae Young Classic. That's how old she is. She was in the Mae Young Classic, dog. They haven't had a Mae Young Classic in like 5 or 6 years. Top Dog says, I wish they would do a documentary in the 80s and 90s Hulkamania Golden Era. Well, they basically just wrapped that into WrestleMania 1. And so when they talk about WrestleMania 1, that's usually what they're talking about. Or when they're talking about the territory raids, they're usually talking about the Hogan era. Because Hogan's era starts in like 84. Have you ever did a video detailing the concept of tag team wrestling and about the worker and the gimmick? No. I found that people don't really care about, well, the hardest of the hardcore nerds. They like wrestling about, history lessons. Because I've actually stumbled across, I'm always trying to find new things to bring to the table. And so I spent a couple of hours listening to this guy named Kim Justice. He does these videos on Japanese pro wrestling. And of course, he talks about Ricky Dozan, and there's a lot of Misawa Kobashi, those kinds of guys, and he gets like thousands of views, 26,000 views or whatever. And I find that works for that audience, but like a lot of people don't really care about. They're not hardest of the hardcore fans like that, and those are like history videos, and it's fun, but that like that kind of stuff, that's already their kind of thing, you know, which I don't think my audience is that deep into. Oh, Dean Ambrose wins. For example, the Hart Foundation, Brett was the worker and Jim Neidhart was the gimmick. Yeah, he just played a different role on the team. He was kind of like the power guy, really. But yeah, he was like the face of the group, the voice, because Brett wasn't really good at cutting promos and all that. Brett took everything anyway. Okay, why is he looking like this? Mel Gibson as Vince McMahon. Oh, that would be great. AJ3 says he just saw a Kim Justice video on the Next Big Thing concept featuring Mark Morgan and Mark Jindrak. I haven't watched that video yet. Like I have no interest in watching any of those things that he talks about, but I just wanted to see like what are people looking at? Like that it's the same thing like Marky D 123 I actually literally enjoy. But Kim Justice is like I like his videos, but I don't care about his subjects. Like I don't care about Akira Maeda. Not really. Like I really don't care about the feud between Antonio Inoki and Giant Baba. Like that's fun, but it's wrestling history and it's interesting to know, but I don't care really. But I like that he has a niche and he sticks to it. And he seems to be like that's his thing is 80s and 90s Japanese wrestling. And I'm very impressed by his dedication and his research. Like that's good stuff. I'm always gonna give people credit for good work that they do, especially since I've seen some really bullshit videos. I try not to bury people, but I've seen some videos that was actually bullshit. I think I told you guys about that one dude. I caught him reading his script directly from Wikipedia. 100% plagiarism. And I think I called him out on it and he blocked me from his channel. So I still haven't told anybody what channel it was, but yeah. Because he was talking about something and I remember that I had read it on Wikipedia and I looked it up, and as he was talking, I was reading right along with him. He was reading word for word from Wikipedia. Like that's not fucking research, man. You're plagiarizing your product here. And he deleted my comment and blocked me from his channel. I ain't watched nothing since. But whatever. Humorous. Now, what are we doing here? This show is too long for them to be. What is Booker T doing? Top Dog thinks people underestimate how over Bret Hart was in the mainstream. I think so too. Yeah, he was on The Simpsons, and there was a reason why, like, he was on Mad TV and all that kind of stuff. Man, Bret was a different kind of cat, man, in terms of being over. He wasn't. He never became Steve Austin or Hulk Hogan, but he was definitely the face of the company for a while. It's just unfortunate that that Vince so badly wanted somebody else to be the face of the company. And to be quite honest, it was probably because Bret was so old at the time. And Bret was 35 when he won the title. So I can see that Vince was kind of like, okay, we need to get the belt off of Ric Flair, who was old. So we put it on somebody who's younger, but it's Bret Hart, who's not that much younger, for God's sake. And they wanted to make somebody else, and Shawn ended up being the guy. because Yoko wasn't going to work out with his weight and everything. And Vader didn't work out either because he works too stiff and everybody hates him. But the same thing, the reason everybody hated him in WWF is the reason why people like him in Japan. Are they supposed to be? Are they supposed to be sunburned? It's skin peeling. This shit is amazing. The Money in the Bank ladder match was 21 minutes. That sounds about right for a Money in the Bank match. People had such high hopes for Tyler Breeze, but I already knew he was too small for Vince. And plus, he had been in NXT for like 10 years by the time he came up with Tyler Breeze. Ah, where's my words? Golden Truth, amazing. Top Dog says, I find it funny how Vince was against older wrestlers being top guys in the 90s, but was so happy to have Rock, Cena at all in their 40s take top spots in the 2010s and 2020s. It's hilarious. Yeah, well, here's the thing. He lost several top guys, and that was his own fault because the company was basically running people off. And he pretty much did that twice. You know, in 2019, 2020, he ran off a bunch of top guys. But he had that lost generation that we all talk about, well, at least that I talk about, where Lashley, MVP, Kennedy, all those guys were gone. Rob Van Dam left. You know, there were so many guys who were over that the audience cared about that Vince ran them off for one reason or another. Either he cut them or he put them behind a glass ceiling and they couldn't get over. And then he did the same thing in like 2019, 2020, where he cut like Rusev and Aleister Black and all those guys. Like he set his company back. And so when other people started coming back, older talent, he started using them because he didn't have much of a choice. But I think part of it, the reason why somebody like Brock and Rock was because Rock is always going to be able to come back and come on top. But I think the whole thing with Brock is that he had went over into UFC and become a big star, and he absolutely wanted to use him in that regard. But Vince has always kind of been gets to a point where a talent is old and he wants to pull him, and he got to that point with Undertaker too, but he kept going with it because it was Undertaker. But you saw how he was with Savage. You saw how he was with like Jerry Lawler and Piper and those guys. He was like, yoink, Flair, yoink, time to pull the plug on him. So, but those guys weren't that old either, when they came back. When will I do Money in the Bank predictions? Really, that's what this show is supposed to be. I'm too late into the show to do predictions, but I guess we'll do it. I guess I'll do it in lieu of a SmackDown review. I'm not sure if SmackDown is going to be an important show or not. Like, I'm not even certain SmackDown is going to be an important show. AJ3 says Brett was a great wrestler, and that's all he was, but he was never the guy, or he never cared about being the guy. He just wanted to be the champion. Well, Brett was the face of the company. He was the guy that was selling video games. When they was doing the new generation, Brett was in the commercials. He was the guy. It was just that he was older than Vince wanted him to be, I think. Top Dog says Vince ran Macho Man off way too early. Macho Man versus Shawn Michaels in a feud would have been phenomenal in the mid-90s. I agree. I agree with that. I don't know why he was obsessed with running off Savage. I don't know why he had to do that. But I guess he figured if he had to lose Hogan, then he was going to go ahead and go all in on the change. And like I say, man, Vince is one of those guys that I love him because he makes hard decisions and he sticks with it. He doesn't waffle on his hard decisions. Like when he made the decision that Roman was the guy, Cena stopped winning titles. He started, losing more, and he made the decision that Roman was the guy and Roman was going to go over. So fuck it. It is what it is. And he's not going to back up off of that, you know? So you knew where you stood when it comes to that. And you knew when the company was going to in a different direction because he made it clear. Other people try to hold on to guys too long. Vince was like, all right, it's over. Let's call it a day. C Nation had its time, but now it's Roman's time. Just like he was like, Kurt Angle. He had Kurt Angle. Angle was still great, but he had made the decision to go with Cena. And so Cena it is. And so everybody's going to lose to Cena. So that's just kind of how it's going to be. And whether people complain about it or not, he made his decision. Ike Dedon says 2010 Raw and SmackDown was bad because Shawn retired, Triple H was fully corporate, Taker became part-time, and Jeff Hardy left. Yeah, I mean, again, if he had not run off certain guys, we probably would have been better off because he would have had certain people who would have been there for 2 or 3 years and been able to fill those top spots. Guys like Carlito, guys like Chris Masters, who was there in 2005, 2006. If he had not run those guys off for one reason or another and actually let them cook and build up, then 2010, 2011, you would have had those guys in there, like CM Punk, right? Like Punk came in, he was there in 06, and they didn't run him off. They didn't run him off till 2014, but he was able to grind and he was able to get there. And Danielson, the same thing. He came in like 2008, 2009 or something like that, and he was able to grind and get to the top. Again, bringing guys in and putting them at the top immediately, that's a rare thing. But a lot of guys, they were getting the feuds, they were getting the TV time, but then the company decided they weren't going any further. Shelton Benjamin was another one of those dudes, and it just seems like it wasn't going to quite work out. So you had an entire generation of people in the late stage Ruthless Aggression era that got run off, and that really caused us to end up with The Miz and Alberto Del Rio and Sheamus getting well, not The Miz, because The Miz didn't get microwaved, but Sheamus did. Sheamus got microwaved because they tried to make a new star quick. Del Rio got microwaved. They tried to make a new star quickly. But you wouldn't have had to do that if if MVP or Lashley or Carlito or whatever had been around. You'll let Chris Masters get more time to, get his stuff together. You wouldn't have had to do that. Didn't Randy get Kennedy fired? Well, there's a collection of issues with Kennedy. Randy being one of them, Cena being another one, and his attitude being a different one. Chip Top Dog says deep down I always felt like even into the 2000s, the 2010s, Vince was kind of had a grudge against Hogan for leaving in the early 90s. Well, it was kind of Vince's idea because he was going in a different direction, and the new generation era was a thing, and Hogan was not going to be the top guy anymore, and I think Hogan knew that, and Vince knew that, and it wasn't really going to work out. So, but I think he was probably hot that Hogan went to WCW. So yeah, I can definitely see that. I can definitely see him. Why is this match so long? Why is Titus O'Neil versus Miro Rusev so long? Yeah, Brett was 35 when he won the title. Shawn was 32. So, but that's younger than 35. And Brett was at what? 39, 40 at the time. Top Dog says, I honestly wish the wrestling business had someone like 1990s Vince McMahon nowadays. Well, if Vince McMahon wasn't like full Joe Biden, his faculties kind of fucked. He would be probably great today, but I think the last couple of months of Vince's run was actually better than people give it credit for. You know, because 2022 was an excellent WrestleMania that Vince was involved with, and fresh out of the pandemic, things were actually looking up. But a lot of people talk about how terrible 2019 was, which is true. And 2020 was weird because of the pandemic, and part of that also includes 2021. So you could say like within the last couple of years, Vince was really bad in 2019 because he was trying to force the big dog thing and all that kind of stuff. But so 2019 was bad, and 2018 was probably not much better. But 2021, 2022 was pretty good, and 2020 was just everybody scratching and fighting to survive at that point. Ike Don says MVP would have been a good world champion coming off his great U.S. title reign. Yeah, like you could definitely have had a lot of fun with Cena and MVP working against each other, or Batista and MVP working against each other, because he did work with both of those guys. Kennedy worked with all of those guys too. He worked with Undertaker and Kane and all of them, and Chris Masters was working with Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle and Cena, and it's just that they gave up on those guys too soon. Black Saint 97 is insane how they had Miz main event Mania over Punk. I think Vince was more invested in the grind. Miz had worked really, really hard. Punk was always an indie darling, and Miz was a company guy. AJ3 says Mighty Brown could have been a top position while he was there with Kennedy, MVP, Masters. Yeah, he was there. Then he left on his own though, so it's not like he got ran off. Elijah Burke was another one that I think could have been a really great, could really promo the Pope, even though he was gonna do Dusty Rhodes. That's all he really knew how to do. But that was fun. He would have been a fun guy to work with. They wasted a lot of time with him. They wasted a lot of time with Vladimir Kozlov. That was a waste of fucking time. They were pushing him way too hard. They wasted time with Jack Swagger. But that was them trying, to make these guys work. Ken was LA Knight before LA Knight. That's absolutely what it was. Vince McMahon, before he got more soft and more hands off, was a goated promoter. Yeah, he still could be, I think. But it was a thing where he made the most important business decision of the last 5 years when he brought Cody back. That's no matter how much people want to give Triple H credit. Everything that's at the top right now is stuff Vince put in motion. He's the one who went down and got Cody. He got in his plane and went and got Cody Rhodes. He made that happen. He was the one who put the Bloodline story together. And made that work. That's the top two things in the company right now. We still haven't gotten too much that Triple H has done on his own without Vince having touched it. Raw is pretty much guys that that Triple H has handpicked, and it's a pretty weak product, if we're being honest. Because the top guys are like Seth Rollins, who was already a top guy, and Damian Priest, who it seems to be something going on with Damian Priest, and Vince didn't seem to have a problem with him. But it seems weird that we give Triple H a ton of credit, and you have to ask the question like, he's been cooking for 2 years. It's like, really? What has he been doing the last 2 years that Vince didn't have a hand in? Even when you put out the WrestleMania XL documentary, The Rock is talking about, they were talking about Roman versus Rock in 2021. This is before Triple H even became head of the creative, WG Phil says Vince also did Judgment Day and brought Finn into the group. Yeah, but he also turned Edge. So yeah, you're right. But Triple H ran Edge off. I can almost guarantee you Edge would not be in AEW right now if Vince was still in charge. Yep, Vince blew up NXT, and that's why we got Braun Breaker and Tiffany Stratton, who Triple H is trying his best to bury, by the way. The Creed brothers, who Triple H is not doing anything with. You know, Monty Brown was a shit. He's my biggest what if story in wrestling. Imagine Marcus Carvine versus Lesnar or Lashley. Hit him with the pounce. That would have been great, wouldn't it? Carvine versus Lashley. That'd have been great. Oh, that'd have been great. That'd have been fun stuff, man. Main event time: Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. It's kind of crazy though. Like as you sit back and you talk about it, you know, Triple H is riding the wave that Vince created. You know, Vince had to be the bad guy to bust up NXT. And you look at what Triple H is doing right now. He's bringing back all these black and gold people that he got over, and none of these guys are getting over. None of them. And Triple H is wasting everybody's time bringing them back instead of focusing on the new talent that Vince actually got over. And it's actually working out for the best because, you know, Brock got tied up in the Vince stuff, so he's not around. And that's actually might be for the best, you know, because now they can actually move on and not rely on Brock. You know, and Brock final match was losing to Cody, which actually did wonders for Cody because now he's the champ. It is 2 hours and 45 seconds, 2 hours, 45 minutes, 50 seconds. And no, the Rusev match was right before the main event. It was the cool down match. The Creed brothers are doing the blood sport. Yeah, they are. They were also losing on main event, which sucks. Top Dog says Triple H has always been a failure as creative. Black and Gold NXT ruined the WWE main event for years. It populated the mid card. It overpopulated the mid card, and that was the problem. Vince was looking for top guys. Triple H is providing solid mid carders, which is we're really gonna be in for it once Roman's gone, bro. Like enjoy this because I can tell Roman's not gonna be around much longer. So enjoy this because what are they gonna do when Roman's gone? The only option they got is to go all in with Braun Breaker, and he's still gonna be a Vince McMahon choice because Vince McMahon destroyed NXT in order to force it to happen. Otherwise, he's still being the PC right now. Top Dog thinks Triple H is booking John Cena like shit on purpose. I think that Cena's bulletproof, so he's trying to make things happen. I will give Triple H credit for the Jacob Fatu thing because it was a decision that Vince didn't make. You know, it was the one thing that probably was needed to be done that Triple H got done. Vince probably still would have not signed Jacob Fatu, but Triple H got it done, so I got to give him credit for that. But the bloodline and everything involved with it is mostly Heyman, Roman, you know, Vince, and those guys. Triple H is just being a manager at this point, you know. That's pretty much it. I can't wait for like 3 or 4 years from now, where all the Triple H's favorites are still stuck in the mid card, not getting over. Like even some of the people that are actually over, like Bayley. Bayley is less over now than she was when Vince was booking her. Bianca Belair is less over now than Vince was booking her. Becky Lynch less over than when Vince was booking her. Like, I don't know, man. Like I was one of those people that thought that Sasha Banks was for sure coming back when Triple H took over. But now I'm starting to think that the reason she didn't come back is because Vince wasn't there. You know, there's no telling. You know, Black saying 97s. I think people got really sick of Brock when he squashed Kofi on SmackDown for the belt. Yeah, but I'm okay with it. It's like I don't know why people wanted the match to be 25 minutes or whatever. It was. I think the big problem was not that he beat him in like 2 seconds for the belt. I think the issue was that there was no rematch. You know, there was no get back for it. There was no attempt at redemption. That's definitely something where you do that and then you make some kind of comeback. To me, as far as I'm concerned, that's the only way you could actually do what they did and make it make sense. Because they did it with Bianca and she came out more over afterwards. Even though people bitched and whined and complained about and all of that, she ended up better off afterwards, you know, because they had a story to tell. AJ3 says I'm going to miss Vince calling up NXT talent like that Triple H had no plan, like Alexa Bliss, Bianca Belair, Elias, Madcap Moss, Liv Morgan, and giving them positions and a platform to shine. I absolutely agree. We had 80% of the WrestleMania card figured out in October. Yeah, that was until The Rock decided that he didn't want to do most of that shit. Low Key says, don't know if you follow boxing, but Ryan Garcia just got dropped by the WBC for dropping N-bombs and shitting on Muslims. I thought he got hacked. Was that legitimately something he did? Ryan Garcia is still a draw, and he's Mexican, so they don't give a fuck. He'll probably end up on Golden Boy. WG Phil says 4 to 5 years. Most of those black and gold hires will be 4 and their 3 or 4th knee replacement. You'll finally get your Johnny Gargano versus Tommaso Ciampa at WrestleMania main event, and they'll both be 44 years old or something like that. You know, maybe somebody will care about that point in time. I doubt it, though. I sincerely doubt it. Top Dog says, I still don't know why Triple H is not doing nothing with Grayson Waller, who's charismatic, can talk on the mic, can go in the ring, and can get mega heat on social media. Well, because it interferes with his beloved small foot European guys and small foot white dudes from, California or whatever. I mean, that's really what all it boils down to. I think Grayson Waller is definitely one of those guys that, when it's all said and done, it's going to be he was a Vince guy. And just like Madcap Moss, just like, Boogs. Now, Madcap Moss is a really interesting case because I didn't know he was in NXT as long as he had been. So I get it. I get why they cut him. He was in NXT for a long time. But he seemed to actually, they wanted something for him. Like Vince finally seemed to have something working out for him, and then all of a sudden, transition, and Triple H pulled the plug on him. Then Triple H and his long-term plans with some of his favorites, like Kevin Owens and small foot wrestlers. Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it at all. I definitely think if Vince would have stuck around, Kevin Owens probably would have left. Actually, no, I don't think so. I think he re-signed before Vince got outed completely anyway. But I think they would have definitely transitioned away from those guys by now, though. All the Brock Roman matches and the lack of title defenses got people tired of Brock. Yeah, I think people got kind of angry about the privilege booking. But that's just kind of how it is when you got like a freak of nature like Brock Lesnar. They get privilege booking. It's kind of weird seeing Roman Reigns in this context now. He's still big. He's big as shit. But it's interesting not seeing Roman, tribal chief Roman Reigns. Triple H had Enzo and Cass and NXT did nothing with them. Right. They come up to the main roster, they're instantly over, and Vince McMahon is doing stuff with them. Even if it's just putting them in commercials, he's at least doing something. And in so much as on NXT, they weren't doing much of anything. Speaking of Garth Ennis, did you know he had a hatred for Captain America? Yes. I learned that when he was writing Punisher, that he had a guttural hatred for Captain America. Because he likes soldiers. He doesn't like superheroes. And he thinks that Captain America calling himself a soldier when he's on like steroids or whatever is like the worst thing in the world. It's like, shut up, you goof. Can you imagine if Gargano ever wins the world title? Well, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen because Gargano is the kind of guy that Triple H likes. And for right now, he's getting a lot of love. Like Triple H is an ego guy. It is what it is. Right now, there's nothing he can do because the bloodline is going to end up being the title picture for the next 2 years, seemingly, So more than likely, Roman's not going to win the title back. That's not going to happen. He probably won't even chase for it anymore. More than likely, the next champion is probably going to end up being Jacob Fatu. At least on SmackDown. And it would make sense for that to be the case. Because I don't think you go back to Roman. I think Roman's winding down. So Roman and Rock is probably going to be the end of Roman's run. At that point in time, once, Cody is established as the face of SmackDown and all this kind of stuff, he's going to need opponents. And they're going to start bringing in guys from the indies to wrestle with them. We might be able to, and what might save us from that is if somebody comes over from AEW, like Malachi Black or Ricky Starks or something like that, might save us from the eventual Johnny Gargano main event run. If we get lucky. That's kind of sad, and I'm hoping guys come over from AEW to save us from that, but I can't think of too many guys who might leave AEW and come over and be worse than Johnny Gargano. Even mid dudes, even mid guys like, Ethan Page, who I'm not a big fan of, he would be favorable to Johnny Gargano as a top level heel or a babyface. But he's certainly going to try it. Ryan got caught on some multi-call app. The WBC is a sanctioning body from Mexico. The head dude was like, we don't tolerate that. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. We'll see how long it lasts. I thought it was fake, but it seemed to be real. Unless he wanted to get out of that contract, maybe that was the case. Kanye West has shown everybody that sometimes if you want to get out of a bogus contract and they won't let you out, just start saying racist shit and they'll drop you. Imagine that Jay Gentile chick on the main roster under Vince McMahon. I mean, just imagine somebody like Nikita Lyons, even though he would have made her lose weight. But somebody like Gigi Dolan with Vince would have been great. He'd have found something for her. And yeah, Jay Gentile, he definitely found something for her too. But he probably would have made her blonde again. Or made her blonde or whatever. Vince liked Owens enough to let him main event WrestleMania against Austin. I think it was more like an Austin thing. I think Austin probably was, because Austin was willing to do it. That's how it happened. So I think it mostly just he benefited from Austin being willing to do the match. In Triple H's world, Shayna Baszler and Kairi Sane is better than Bianca Belair. Well, yeah. I'm surprised he's not doing more with Kairi Sane as it is, but again, we might be in the grind portion where, Kairi Sane is just playing the backstage person right now. Hey, look, you can see Roman Reigns is growing into something right here. How he's super confident and cocky. He's supposed to be the babyface in this match, by the way. And look at how cocky he is. It's amazing. It's been right in front of you this whole time, fellas. The tribal chief. It's been in front of you this whole time. I know Triple H can't wait for the NXT deal, for the Netflix deal. Oh my God, you just really put that in the universe, didn't you? It's going to be Johnny Gargano versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight Championship match. Going to be 30 minutes on Raw. I'm going to die, bro. But that's going to be an interesting thing because I don't have Netflix. So how am I going to watch Raw when it transitions? Because I know the cost of Raw is going to go up. So that means I'm going to have to find a stream, an illegal stream, to watch Raw every week. That's all right. That's okay. I could do that. I don't really want to get Netflix to watch Raw, if we're being honest. Cody Rhodes shouldn't be the top guy. He's 1 year away from his 40s. It's time for guys like Braun, Trick, Tiffany as top guys. I'm not going to say that. You know, Cody had to start over because he left for all those years. Reigns kicking his motherfucking ass, boy. He whooping his ass, boy. This is proto big. This is big dog Roman right here, but this is proto tribal chief right here. Did you know Chelsea Green is also Canadian? I guess that's why Triple H is booking her in the Money in the Bank. What's next? Remember Piper Niven is what she's been doing. I wouldn't be surprised if Chelsea Green doesn't win Money in the Bank though. She's been grinding. Chelsea Green's done a really good job. I could see her winning it. I wouldn't be against Chelsea Green winning Money in the Bank. The only problem is they have not established her as a threat physically, as a champion, and they need to do that. But they can do that with the briefcase. Like once she gets the briefcase, you can establish her as a threat with the in the ring. Because Chelsea Green doesn't really win matches. It's like I don't even know where her finisher is. So with the correct booking, Ricky Starks could be huge in WWE. I don't trust Noseman with him. Trust Cody with him. Cody's gonna have his back. And I'm pretty sure that's going to be one of the first things they do is they're going to put it with Cody. And Cody's going to be doing the politics for him. Making sure he doesn't get buried, shit on and everything. He shocked Triple H ain't doing much for Nakamura. Well, Nakamura's body he's been put through the blender. See, that's the thing. The Japanese guys are beat to shit. So even if you want to do something with them, physically they can't go like they used to. So, I'm shocked Nakamura isn't featured more myself. Nakamura was featured better under Vince, believe it or not. Even if it was just doing comedy stuff, So when you see people like, oh, everything Triple H did is so much better. Like, really? Nakamura won a championship every year Vince had him under his contract. He wanted something, either Intercontinental title, U.S. title, tag team title. He was on TV he was just doing comedy stuff. Now he did all those promos for SmackDown, and he hasn't made any appearances. He hasn't done anything. Roman has always acted more cocky in his matches with Seth. He probably likes little brother and Seth. Yeah, because he's going hard in this match too. He's basically working fucking heel in this match, and he's supposed to be the babyface. Top Dog says Triple H trying to convince his NXT darlings to go over Hogan would probably ask for his resignation papers on the spot. Oh yeah, Hogan walk away from that shit. These guys are tiny. They ain't over. They ain't making no money. It's called the World Heavyweight title, not the Cruiserweight title. Can someone have the boss tell Triple H to give Gargano a cheeseburger? The sad thing is, Gargano looks like the kind of guy who will eat like a plate full of chicken nuggets while watching some kind of All Japan match and won't gain a goddamn pound. A lot of people think Jada Parker is going to be a big star in the future, but if Triple H had a creative, she's screwed. And plus, she's black, and you know how he treats black talent. Oof. I definitely think that she's not going to get her full potential. Like, I already think they're not doing enough with her right now. Like, once she broke through and ended up on World Star and all that kind of stuff, they should have started featuring her more. That was a mistake. You know, they got time to fix it, but that was a mistake not featuring her more. I'm not saying make her the champion. I'm saying feature her more. That match with Mia Yim should have showed that she can actually do the stuff. You know, but she needs like a long-term feud. Chelsea Green's finisher is Christian's kill switch, but a jumping version. Interesting. I didn't know that. Black Sand 97 says, at least send Nakamura to NXT like you did with Dolph that one time. You know what? That actually would be pretty cool. I know it flies in the face of what NXT is supposed to be for like 48-year-old Nakamura or whatever to come down there and wrestle. But those guys could use it. They could use the help. Triple H trying to convince Cena to put over Gargano. The crazy thing is, Cena would do it. Gargano would get nothing out of it, and everybody would be wearing their new John Cena gear, pissed that he decided to do that. What will happen if Triple H steps down? Will Declan take over? The Anoa'i Tally take over? It'll probably be Paul at that point. It'll probably be Paul. For a rookie, Jada Parker could talk her ass off, and she got ghetto in her. I like that. Yeah, she got swag. You know, she knows what he's doing. She's doing. And she still does like the silly TikTok videos where she's very cute and everything. So she might have some like a good baby face around in her too, but she works as like kind of a hood ratty heel character without being stereotypical. And she's athletic too, so she really works. There's gonna be some sad times in like 3 or 4 years, bro. My only hope is that Brian Breaker gets everything that he deserves for all the hard work he's done, and that he gets the push that Gunther gets at the very least. That might save us for a little while, but that women's side is dead in the water because I don't know what they're gonna do once Triple H has to actually push somebody who's not a full horsewoman or Rhea Ripley, because we see what he's doing now. They've kind of forced his hand with Liv Morgan. You know, I know he probably would rather it be somebody else right now, but Liv Morgan's actually doing something that's actually working out. Cena put over Bryan, not crazy if he put over Gargano. Gargano was smaller than Bryan, for God's sake. Heyman buttered Triple H up with that Hall of Fame speech. He wants Triple H to spot, and he can get it too. I guarantee it. If Triple H was to have another heart thing, Paul would be running SmackDown and Raw and WWE in general, and they'd be over with. They wouldn't give it to Bruce. They'd give it to Paul though. As everybody knows, giving it to Bruce is like, giving it to Vince. Do I think Gunther's going to win the world title this year? Absolutely. SummerSlam is the night. I think it's pretty much set in stone. I think it's pretty much set in stone for Gunther. There's nowhere else for him to go. He was Intercontinental Champion for over a year. He won the King of the Ring. There's nowhere else for him to go except to be the world champion. And since that world heavyweight title is weak as fuck, you really don't have there's no downside to him winning it. You know? Like, why shouldn't he win it? Would be the better question. Is it too soon? He's been on the main roster for over a year, 2 years. That's about the average time. He did the grinding part where he worked as an Intercontinental champion, got super over. The only problem is he's kind of underexposed now because they took him off TV after he won the King of the Ring. So now they have to put him back in position where he matters. So I definitely think he should be on TV. Like he should be doing commentary watching or something. But I definitely think he's going to win the title. If he doesn't win it at SummerSlam, he'll definitely probably win it. If they doing they doing that show in Germany, right? He'll probably win it there. But I'm thinking he's probably gonna win it at SummerSlam. Triple H marks on Twitter are also making things worse by overhyping him as a booker. Well, they've been doing that since the days of NXT. This is not a surprise. I'm not surprised at all they're overhyping him. These two dudes is cooking, man. They never have bad matches together, Rollins and Reigns. I think it's because of their friendship. They have good chemistry. I will say this: if Reigns is gonna wrestle maybe a couple of more years, maybe his last match should be against Rollins. He seemed more like a family man, not going to hang around for another decade like the rest of these guys. He's the kind of guy that's going to cut out early. And Rollins like he's going to be around for another 10 years. So maybe they finally have Rollins pin the tribal chief as Roman's last big match. I would say 3 years from now, but that would be something, wouldn't it? They have a storied history with the Shield and everything. Came in together. They're not going to leave together, clearly, because Ambrose is already gone. And he didn't talk well about Triple H in his book. So I don't know if he really would come back. And plus, I think that, half-assing it on the indies and everything is better for him than doing stuff in WWE. He's more appreciated for being kind of shitty on the indies because at least he's a big star doing indie shows. And that's what people want. Oh, he's a huge star, but he still does indies. They love him. I'm pretty sure every show that Moxley works on loses money. I don't see how they can afford it. Moxley doesn't like Triple H. Well, he talked about Triple H in his book. And basically was like, he liked him. He liked working against him. He liked the match that they had. But when he was talking about like his philosophy on wrestling, he felt like Triple H was like shit talking Terry Funk. And Moxley is one of those guys that thinks the world of Terry Funk. And Triple H is more of a Harley raised Ric Flair guy. So it doesn't seem to me. But I think Kevin Dunn was mostly the problem with Moxley. He didn't have much negative to say about Triple H or Vince. He said negative stuff about both of them, but he mostly hated Michael Hayes and Kevin Dunn. And Hayes is still there, weirdly enough. I'm surprised he's not gone yet. I mean, of all the people that they kept around, I can't believe Michael Hayes is still there. And I could see that maybe Moxley would work with Triple H, just to see how it is. And it would be much better with Kevin Dunn being gone. But I don't know if Triple H really they have the same philosophy on wrestling. The only hope is that TKO steps in to do what? I don't think as long as Triple H is making money, they're not going to do anything. You know, they're not going to do anything. And they're right to not do anything. Get the hell out of the way. Let him do what he's doing. But like I said, in 3 or 4 years, we're going to see how how great Triple H is. Right now, everything that he's got going on is stuff that the talent is very invested in, and that Vince McMahon got the ball rolling on it. Low Key says it would be cool if we got to see Roman's last match be a proper Shield triple threat. Just from a story aspect, it would be nice to close that loop and stack pin both. Almost lost respect for Moxley when he kissed Effie. Well, I did lose respect for him when he did that. But it seems like that's what you need to do to have your indie wrestling bona fides, man. Or as they say, bona fides, however you choose to pronounce that word. Uh-oh. Oh, nice. I miss this was around the time where I actually liked Seth Rollins. I miss liking Seth Rollins, man. Oh, shit. I don't like Seth Rollins anymore, but I miss liking Seth Rollins. He was another guy that reminded me a lot of HBK. When did I realize wrestling fans became insufferable? Ooh. Mm. Well, again, I saw it under when I was on the internet message boards in the early 2000s. I saw how insufferable those fans could be. But mostly I wasn't watching the show, so I didn't really get it. Then when I was on the message boards again during the age of Cena, I mostly agreed with them. So because I hated Cena. They loved AJ Styles. I hated him too. So I was kind of starting to see how ridiculous they were when they were hyping TNA as being the best thing ever. And every TNA show was the best show ever. Every episode of Impact was the best show ever, or better than whatever WWE show it was. But I think mostly it was. I'm trying to think of what exactly what year. It might have was it 2015? When I realized that they just couldn't be saved. Oh shit. 2015, 2016, maybe earlier. I think the CM Punk stuff actually didn't help matters either. When Punk was the top guy, it couldn't be helped. They were just absolutely terrible. People don't talk about Seth Rollins' IC title run. That was peak Seth Rollins. I agree. I think that he was really high level as an Intercontinental Champion. He did a really great job. I think he was a great world champion too. I think he was booked kind of weak to start, but I liked him as a main event talent. But I liked him much better as a mid carder, as a let's say higher level mid carder. He said they became insufferable when they wanted Bryan to win at Mania again in 2015. I wasn't on the internet much before that. I mean, they always get really, really terrible about their darlings. Bryan being one of those guys was tough to deal with, man. That was a tough time. It gave me a lot of headaches. Wrestling fans in the 2010s ruined wrestling way more than Vince. Yeah, they ruined it for themselves mostly. Like there was not much wrong with the product or wrong with the people. You know, again, there's a lot of things that you can argue with. You can't really argue with success. When the shows are selling out and there's money all over the place, you can't really argue. But that's why when they start talking about how bad things were in 2019, and they show like the lowest attended pay-per-view in WWE history, which was Stomping Grounds, that was in 2019. Like you can't argue with it. There was something wrong going on in 2019 for sure. But before then, everybody claims to hate every single year before that, but they weren't having those issues. You know, the empty arena issues, the ratings were going down, but the ratings have always been going down. They've been going down for years. And now the ratings are starting to go back up. So even though I'm saying what Triple H is doing is fucked, I'm arguing with success, and there's not much I can do about that. What an interesting pedigree that they just did there. Of course I've seen him do that before, but him basically jumping into the pedigree has always been kind of crazy to me. Wrestling fans literally thought CM Punk versus Jericho should have been the main event over Cena and Rock. Yeah, they're retarded. They also thought that Jericho and Owens should have been the main event. These people are sick in the head. Seth Rollins just beat Roman Reigns clean, bro. That's crazy. That's crazy, bro. Great match. They kicked ass. They kicked ass. Until, give it about 30 more seconds, he's about to lose it. Ha ha! Oh shit. Came from behind, bro. Oh my goodness. This should have been a heel turn, cuz. Ooh, I got chills. All Roman's got to do is not get up. All you got to do is not stand up, you idiot. Why would you stand up, moron? Yeah. No. Wait, this was Roman first come. No, he was suspended. He lost to Finn Balor, I think, because he was he lost because once the Ambrose won the title, it was SmackDown official after that. So then now they had to create the red belt, and then Roman lost in the tournament for that red belt, if I remember correctly. Yeah, he got suspended. Yeah, it was something. I miss Titantrons too, bro. I love Titantrons. They if Triple H wanted to bring back anything to make me happy, Titantrons would be one, and getting rid of Death Rebel would be another one. But all three members of the Shield were the champion on Money in the Bank. He looks so weird compared to how he looks now. He probably should have cut his hair back then, because he's thinning. It's thinning bad. Yay! And he lives in Las Vegas too, so it worked out. And then what was this? 3 years later, he would make his debut in AEW in Las Vegas. Tiffany said when she turned 30, she will retire from wrestling and go to Hollywood. Hopefully, she can DM. She seems to have a lot of ideas. But at least she got a plan. She don't plan to do this shit forever. But talking like that, she'll never get there. You gotta focus on the road in front of you. Only Logan got a proper Titantron. Well, it seems like they only see Logan Paul as the only star on the show, apparently. I love Titantrons, man. It's terrible that they got rid of them. Oh, I didn't even notice they called it the WWE World Heavyweight Championship at this point in time. Because this is the fused belt, the Orton Cena fused title. They split it just a couple of weeks later because heavens to Betsy, Raw got to have a champion. All right. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. I appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed the show. We had fun watching it. Really great show, too, by the way. The big matches delivered. It might have been one or two matches on the show. Show could have been shorter. Maybe didn't need that Rusev match. Maybe didn't need that Apollo Crews match. But more variety of talent on the show. That women's tag team match could have got cut too, but mostly it's a really good show. But thank you guys for your time. I gotta go to the bathroom, so we're gonna wrap this thing up pretty quick, and I'll talk to you guys later.